Yo, what up guys? Welcome to a new guide. It's gonna be Syndra time. So why should you watch this guide? Well, this is my fourth reiteration of the Syndra guide. I've done over 100 Syndra client reviews. I've played an insane amount of Syndra games. I've made this guide for the fourth time, one of the previous ones being on Coach Curtis's channel. I know exactly how to teach Syndra efficiently. This is gonna be a very efficient guide, and every second of the way, you gotta know the information that I present right there. No bullshit attached. You will become a better player, and I will teach you how to win games consistently on Syndra. Follow this guide, and you guys will climb. I'm so confident in teaching you guys Syndra that if you guys have any questions or any remarks, put it in the comments, and I will get back to you. Okay? So, why should you play Syndra? Number one, Syndra is always flexible, she's always strong, and she's never too weak to play. What do I mean with this? Is that you can basically pick her in any draft. I did a challenge in which that I blue wand or red wand Syndra in 30 games in a row. And even though the enemies picked so bad matchups into me, I always felt like I was able to play the game. I didn't feel like I was not able to play the game. And this was all in the elo range between 600 and 800 LP on EU West. You got 100% AGC, guys. This champion has control in the lane. She has control in the mid game. She has control in the late game. At every point of the game, you're going to be strong enough to do stuff. Of course, she spikes at certain points and is a little bit weaker at other points, but you're always in the position where you have control. If you are the better player, if you know better what to do, you will climb on this champion. She's also blind pickable, as I said, and has almost no bad matchups. Of course, there's some tougher matchups to play, but if you learn those, if you learn to play those matchups, you can minimize really well, and you still can play the game practically in every matchup. There's no matchup that forces you to like dodge or even be unable to play the game in any kind of way. As I said, she's strong early, mid, and late. Every point in the game, she does have agency. She teaches the game, she teaches the fundamental in an incredible fashion. And whatever rank you are, you're going to be able to learn the game through Syndra. She doesn't skip many fundamentals. You'll learn a lot about the game when playing this champion. And as a bonus, of course, there's a mysterious guide right here that I'm making. This is going to be helping you guys. Enough reason to play Syndra in itself. And at the moment, it's also a little bit of an anti-meta pick. There's some ADCs mid running around, and Syndra is actually pretty decent champion into the AD carry mids, especially below the utmost highest level, where tethering and spacing is going to be very, very important. Below that, the champion like Syndra can really abuse these auto-attackers because of her increased range in lane, and because of the fact that you can just nuke them at a certain point in the game. So we're going to be moving on towards their identity. Syndra has 3 different pillars that define her as an identity. Number 1, she's a control mage, she's a scaler, and she is flexible. So Syndra is a classic control mage. She wants to be controlling choke points, she wants to be first at areas and at fights, she wants the enemies to run into her, but she's also a little bit of a burst-oriented control mage. She doesn't really deal a lot of DPS, but most of her damage is actually in a burst fashion. So she uses those choke points, she uses the control that she has to look for picks with her E and nuke a target, sometimes even 2, depends on how many people you hit with the E, and take control of the fights and of the map through that. She also is a scaler. She scales incredibly well with all of her splinter stacks. She has, of course, if she gets the full splinter stack, she gets extra AP. She has an execute on her ult. If you basically land one good E in the mid to late game whenever you have your items, you're gonna one-shot someone. So there's always that threat of Syndra being present in the game, but that whenever you just hit your items, you're gonna be able to take over the game. You're gonna be able to like decide the game with one single ability. And finally, she's flexible. What I've found is that she's good in the early game, she's good in the mid game, she's good in the late game. As long as you're in control, as long as you're the better player, you're able to navigate this champion in almost any draft and matchup. So that means that you can also adapt your runes to these bad matchups. You can adapt your runes to be a little bit more early game focused, a little bit more late game focused. Everything is possible. She's incredibly flexible, also in the way that she likes to approach the game. She can play for one-shots, she can play a Fog of War, she can play as a control mage, but also a little bit as a burst assassin. A lot of things she can do. That's what makes Syndra Syndra, and that's what makes this champion so amazing. Before we move on to the rune section of the guide, I quickly wanted to mention that we have a coaching platform live in which that we help players get to Emerald. And this is the Mid Lane Academy, in which that we help you guys through a set amount of champions, help you achieve your desired rank. And currently, this is the list of champions. We're going to be adding Hwei, Taliyah, and Akali real soon. And what do we specifically have in here? If we go, for example, to Syndra, the champion that we're making the guide on right now, we got a full in-depth Syndra guide. One of them currently updating with even more points towards the guide. We got live commentaries. We got matchup guides that we're currently working on. We got some member reviews. We got some coaching that we're doing. So there's a lot to it. If you guys are interested, let me know. Put it in the comments. I'll also be having a link in the description, and I hope to see you guys there. We're going to be moving on to the runes, and there's going to be two main rune trees that we're going to be opting into. Number one is Sorcery First, and number two is Inspiration First. Inspiration First is going to be for a little bit more scaling-oriented style, while Sorcery First is going to be a little bit more for early game aggression and lane dominance. So we're going to be starting off with the Sorcery tree first, and I'm going to be walking you guys through when to take which rune precisely. The major keystones, but also the smaller minor runes. So starting off with Sorcery First. This is a rune page that we're going to be taking when we want to be contesting lane. And I basically take this into all matchups except for D-Shield or heavy scaling matchups on mid lane. So in those times, I mainly go for either Ahri or Comet. So Ahri, Comet is going to be preference, right? Whichever you like, both work. We want to be going for Ahri, though, if we are going to be planning to auto-attack the enemies a lot. So versus melees that we want to be contesting, Ahri is better than Comet, because the auto-attacks also proc Ahri, Comet does not. And versus champions that we're going to be continuously hitting. If we're going to be playing versus higher range champions, or champs that we're mainly going to be rotating our abilities in every so few seconds, then Comet is slightly better. So if you're going to be hitting him a lot, go Ahri. If you're going to be hitting him a little bit less, then go Comet. Then we always want to combine this with Mana Flow Band, because, of course, even though Syndra doesn't have too many mana issues in her passive, Mana Flow Band is still really good to make us a little bit more free flow with all of the abilities that we want to be using. We go for Transcendence. The reason I like Transcendence on Syndra is because Syndra loves ability haste. Because the more ability haste we get, indirectly, the more stuns we're going to be getting, and also the more damage that we're going to be dealing with the rest of our abilities. Syndra, in general, loves ability haste. We're going to be hearing that a lot throughout the guide. If we want to be contesting the enemies very hard in the lane, we go for Scorch. If we want a little bit more scaling approach, we want to go for Gathering Storm. So if you're not going to be hitting the enemies all that often because they're either very defensive, or you think like your Scorch is not really going to make a difference, go for Gathering Storm, because Syndra loves ability power. Then for the secondary tree, I personally have been really fond of Precision. Precision second has been fantastic for me. Why? Because you get the Legend Haste and you get Cut Down. Both are amazing runes for Syndra. Why is Haste so good? Well, once again, Syndra loves ability haste. It's so unbelievably good for her. If she can reduce the cooldown of her E, that means more stuns, less windows for the enemies to punish you, because your E is also your self-peel. And the cut down is also incredible, because if you do be dealing more damage to enemies above 50% HP, that's going to be setting up for the execute of your R. And in lane, this is just a lot of damage. This rune is just in general the best rune out of all of those three in that tree. And cut down in general is very strong right now. So a combination of these two, fantastic. You cannot go wrong with that. In some situations, you can also go Absorb Life. Absorb Life is also a really good rune right now, where you get a little bit more sustain in the lane, just slightly, and a little bit more sustain in the mid game, especially when you're going to be pushing out waves. It's preference. If you want to deal more damage, right, go Cut Down for sure. But if you want to sustain a little bit more, you feel like you need to sustain, Absorb Life is not a bad option, but we'll always want to be taking the haste. That's why also we take haste in the stat runes right here. Haste is incredible for Syndra, because of the fact that we're so cooldown based, and if we can reduce the cooldown of our Q and our E especially, we're going to be getting more passive splinter stacks. We're going to be having our E up more often, which is our self-peel. This is just going to be the value of this rune is just so incredible. And I've also experimented with the attack speed chart. I think attack speed chart is also incredible. I wish I could take both because attacking faster makes CSing a little bit easier on Syndra, even though you don't necessarily need it. It helps you with contesting lane a little bit more. So if you're going to be playing versus some control mages and you feel like you need the extra attack speed to contest the lane, contest the push a little bit more, that's okay. You can do that. I do think that if you learn to play with the ability haste shard, I think it's slightly better because it suits Syndra's identity for the rest of the game a little bit better. And at a certain point in the game, you're not going to really be out-attacking the mains anyway anymore. So this is purely taken for the early game, and this is like so much better scaling. We always take this ability power shard, and then you can go either for flat health or scaling health, depending on what kind of matchup that you're playing into. If you're playing against a matchup that is contesting you pre-level 6, either due to heavy poke or because it's the bully mage or something like that, go flat health because it's just much more valuable. But if you're playing versus a champion that only starts contesting you post level 6, most assassins like the Zed and stuff like that, you don't need the flat health into. You can just take the scaling health because they only are threatening to you post level 6. Now we're also going to move on to a secondary tree that we can take with sorcery primary, and that is Resolve. I like to take Resolve into some matchups that with some heavy assassins with some long cooldown trading patterns like Fizz, Ekko. These are classic sorcery into Resolve matchups, and the bone plating is really the key rune that we gotta highlight right here, because the bone plating is gonna help you survive their all-in trades on top of you, and because their cooldowns are so long, you're gonna minimize their all-in windows. And we combine it with Overgrowth to just because we're farming a lot, we get a little bit of extra health, we get a little bit more tanky. It's just a nice bonus. There's not really any other major rune that just suits it super well for Syndra. So I've also highlighted Second Wind. If you're playing at the highest levels of the game, what you're gonna see is that some people in mage versus mage matchups, you're gonna be contesting a lot early. There's gonna be a lot of fighting, a lot of trading early. And if you're gonna be playing mage versus mage in, I would about to say High Master, Grandmaster plus, then I would actually recommend running Second Wind plus Overgrowth, because the Second Wind is going to help you sustain in those lanes that you otherwise might struggle into. But that's only for the highest level. If you're not Master tier, if you're below Master tier, just take the haste and cut down, because you're going to be able to survive by playing well in general anyway. As for the next runes, we got Inspiration first, and Inspiration first is going to be taken when you're going to be looking to skill a little bit more. So the benefit of Inspiration towards Sorcery is that it kind of ties in with Syndra's identity pretty well. Sorcery really makes up for her a little bit weaker, so to say, early lane, which actually makes her lane quite strong. But this rune page, if you're allowed to take it, is going to emphasize your strengths on Syndra even more. I'm going to explain why. So First Strike, first of all, is really good on Syndra, because if you can get your items quicker, a little bit more quickly, what you're going to do is you're going to be able to skill better. Syndra loves gold, duh. Who doesn't? Which chef doesn't? But the main benefit of First Strike is because Syndra is a burst-oriented scaling control mage. What's going to happen is, since she's so burst-oriented, First Strike is going to be able to empower that burst that she already has. That's what makes First Strike so good on Syndra, especially in the mid to late game. And in the early game, it's so easy to proc with just a Q. So the gold income is just very high. Then, secondary of this tree, we're going to be taking either cashback or magical footwear. And what's the mindset behind these two? Well, cashback is usually more effective than magical footwear if you are a champion that is 3-item or more spiking. And magical footwear is going to be a little bit more effective if you're a 2-item spiking champion or before. Because the magic footwear basically gives you free boots of 300 gold, and cashback you need like 2 full items to get like about 300 gold back. So if you want the earlier spike, magical footwear is better. But the downside is that you cannot then buy boots. So against matchups that you need boots early, go cashback. And if you feel like, oh, I need to spike at 2 items this game, then go for magical footwear, and then just make sure that you understand you cannot buy boots early. As for the third rune in this tree right here. We got the triple tonic and the biscuits as possible options. If you feel like you struggle with mana issues, which some of you might do, you don't necessarily as Syndra, you can just play a little bit slower, play around your passive, which is inbuilt mana regeneration. You don't need cookies. And then I definitely recommend triple tonic, because triple tonic is really good on Syndra. It gives a nice bit of gold, but especially the red pot is really easy to use in combination with our ult. It makes our burst damage suddenly very dangerous. But more importantly, the blue pot, in which that you get a free skill point, is amazing on Syndra because of the fact that you get your W upgraded to the max level a little bit earlier. And the W deals additional true damage, so getting more points to that is fantastic for your damage output. But even more important is that it actually gives 5 passive skill points because we get the option to level a little bit earlier. So it helps us stack our passive a little bit quicker, and that's what makes this rune actually quite good on Syndra. And in the final tree, we got the option between Jack of all trades and Cosmic Insight. The way that you have to think about this is raw stats. Jack of all trades better. You get haste. Syndra loves haste. You also get a little bit of extra AP. Syndra also loves that as well. So it's just a general good rune if you want to take that extra bit of stats. On the other hand, Cosmic Insight is also fantastic for Syndra. Getting that summoner spell cooldown reduction is amazing because you're going to be needing your flash a lot when you're playing Syndra. You're an immobile control mage. And having flash up or down is going to be the difference between you surviving and not surviving. Cosmic Insight usually grants us about 1 extra flash per game. Might be a difference maker. But not only that, also your TP cooldown gets reduced. So it's a very nice general rune. You don't have to think about it. It just is there, and it's just going to be always useful. The item haste is also going to be good for Syndra. I don't want to go too deep into that because then we're going to be overcomplicating the heck out of it. And just know that you cannot go wrong with both options. The easier option, in my opinion, is the Cosmic Insight. I think it's the safer option. But both, once again, are very good. And then you can combine this with secondary precision, as we discussed in the previous room page with the sorcery first. Same premise, same ideas behind them. They're just really solid runes for Syndra. And then you can also combine that with sorcery secondary if you want. For example, the mana flow and transcendence. If you want some extra mana, this is completely viable. We always like to take the cooldown reduction rune. But also, you could theoretically run Gathering Storm in this case. So we go like Transcendence, Gathering Storm. We go full scaling, right? That's like the full scaling setup, which is very strong. You'll get like insane amounts of AFP as well, like stacking with our passive. Really good rune page as well. In my opinion, this is all preference. It mainly goes about, are we taking sorcery or inspiration first? That's the main thought process that you need to have. Are we taking sorcery or inspiration first? And which secondary tree are we combining with? That depends on the matchup and depends on the preference. If you guys have any questions about the runes, let me know. We're moving on to the build. There's many different variations of Syndra build that you can go. We're going to be covering that in the next slide, but we're going to be starting off with the El Clasico Syndra build, which is Ludens into Sorks into Rabadon's Death Gap. So why is this build so good on Syndra? Mainly because it amplifies our identity. Syndra has a scaling control burst mage, so she likes burst. That's why we go Ludens, because it helps with bursting people down. And then we go for the sorcery shoes, because the flat magic penetration is fantastic to burst people down. And then we go into Rabadons. So there's a very specific reason why we'd like to complete Rabadons second, compared to, for example, another burst-oriented assassin AP item in Stormsurge or Shadowflame. But I'm going to be explaining you guys a little bit later why that's the case. That's not something for right now, because there's a very specific reason for that. And what we can do is, because Rabadons can sometimes be very awkward to buy, because it is 2 needlessly large rods with this 1250 gold each. What you can do, and this is based upon what Nemesis has been doing, is you can use the Aether Wisp as a little bit of a step-up item towards your Rabadons. So if you cannot afford an instantly needlessly large rod, you will actually be able to buy an Aether Wisp, because it's a pretty good item. It gives you movement speed. Syndra loves movement speed because it makes it easier to kite, makes it easier to land your E's, chase people. And it's just an item that gives very nice stats for the amount of gold that you invest into it. So this can be as a little bit of a step-up item towards our Rabadons if we cannot instantly build the needlessly large rod. So this is going to be your classic build, and then as a situational third item, you can go either Banshees versus heavy AP. You can finish your Aether Wisp into a Cosmic Drive if you want more CDR and a little bit more HP. If you need magic penetration because the enemy team is stacking a lot of MR, you go Void Staff. In this build, I think Void Staff is slightly better than Crypt Bloom, but Crypt Bloom can also be completely fine. You could theoretically also turn your Aether Wisp into a Stormsurge if you're really fat and if you're going to be overkilling your targets. So you're actually going to be making use of the Stormsurge passive. And Zhonya's always a solid option as well because it helps you with versus heavy threat that wants to engage upon you. The stasis is incredible. Theoretically, you could always go Shadowflame as well. I'm not the biggest fan of this item on Syndra, but that's my personal preference. As for you always want to be taking TP on Syndra, no doubt about that. How about the mindset of Darksteel? When do you buy Darksteel? When do you not buy Darksteel? You can buy Darksteel when you're quite fat, when you're looking to snowball. It's a solid item on Syndra. It's not something that I always opt into because I am constantly looking to finish off my item spikes. And especially if you go Aether Wisp into Rabadons, it can sometimes be hard to slot in a Darksteel there as well. So only do a Darksteel if you feel like you're going to be comfortable not dying that much and picking up some kills here and there. And you can actually stack the item. So now we're going to be going a little bit more holistically into when do we buy which stat on Syndra. And yeah, that's just going to be giving you guys a little bit more holistic understanding of when to buy each item. So there's many other options. You can also opt in for Seraphs on Syndra. You can opt in for Lucidities on Syndra. The main thing that you have to understand is what kind of team composition am I playing against? And what kind of team composition am I playing with? If you're playing with a team composition that has not only one, but maybe two more AP champs, so maybe you're playing with a Lilia jungle, and you're playing with, for example, a Lulu support or something like that, it can sometimes be a little bit ugly to buy full magic penetration because the enemy team is going to be buying a lot of MR. So if you suspect that the enemy team is going to be buying a lot of MR, the sorcery shoes value just goes down a little bit. And in that specific case, what you can possibly do is you can go either Ludens or Seraphs into a Crypt Bloom secondary. But you can also go a little bit more CDR centric and maybe play for a win condition in your own team and maybe look for these stuns. Because Syndra loves CDR as well. If you can get more stuns out, you can set up more stuns for your team. And if you're going to be reaching 4 items, you're going to be one-shotting people anyway. So if you go Sorcery Shoes or Lucidities, in that case, it isn't really going to be mattering a whole lot. So what's the mindset between Seraphs and Ludens? Well, Seraphs is really good if you're going to be playing against champions that have a lot of kill threat onto you or reset champions, and you don't need the extra burst that the Ludens provide you. So it's a little bit more of a safer option, and yeah, you're less playing for the burst one-shot, but rather a little bit more to survive, a little bit more to play for the stuns as well. So usually if you go Seraphs, you combine them with the Lucidities. If you go Ludens, you combine them with the Swords. These are all viable options. Everything is possible in that regard. Personally, if possible, I always like to go this build, but only if I've got too much AP or the enemies are too tanky or the enemies have too much engage on top of you is when I will opt in for a Seraphs into Lucidities. Otherwise, the burst in our build is just too good not to buy because it fits in with and slots in with her identity so incredibly well. If you guys have any questions about the build, let me know. So why are Stormsurge and Shadowflame bait as a second item on Syndra? There's two main reasons for that. Reason number one is that it anti-synergizes with our ultimate execute on 100 splinters stacks. Because the ultimate execute below 15% HP. And this is then going to be the ability that we're going to be using most of the times to execute the enemies with and kill them with. Now let's read what Shadowflame does. Shadowflame deals makes that your true and magic damage deals 30% increased damage below enemies with 35% HP. If we're going to be taking that execute of our ult in it as well, what we'll see is that the Shadowflame actually gets reduced effectiveness if our ult already executes below 15% HP. So therefore, these two items don't really work together too well. Also, same with Stormsurge, is because our ult wants to be executing people, right? What's going to happen is that Stormsurge, the passive effect, is not really going to be helping you killing one target. It usually will help you like damaging the rest, but it's not going to help you killing one target because the active is not really what we're doing it for with Stormsurge. Stormsurge is actually quite good if we're able to overkill the enemies, because then we can actually get the gold and we can deal the damage in the large area. But usually if you're even at 2 items, this item is not going to cut it. This item is not going to give you the damage that you need. You rather wait a little bit longer and actually spike on the Rabadons. The downside of the Rabadons is that the Rabadons is slightly more expensive than these 2 items, but still, I think it's worth waiting. You can also see it in the win rate. The win rate difference is it's massive. It's completely insane here. And the other reason is build flexibility. And this one, in my opinion, is even more important than the anti-synergy between those other items on Syndra. Build flexibility has been, if you go Shadowflame or Stormsurge second, build flexibility will be a pain in your ass. Because the reason is that if you go these items second, you need another damage item on third, like the Rabadons, like the Void Staff or the Crypt Bloom, or you will not deal enough damage to kill people. If you go for a Banshees or a Zhonya's third with these 2 items, you will not be able to one-shot people. I found it in my own games. I found it in my own experience. Hence is why if you go Rabadon second, what's going to happen is you're going to be able to actually opt in for the Zhonya's. You're going to be able to opt in for the Banshees. You're going to be able to opt in for maybe the Cosmic Drive, which you otherwise would not be able to do so because of the fact that you're otherwise not going to have enough damage. So mainly build flexibility is going to be able to, it's just going to make your game feel so much better. So test it out, try it out. I really recommend the Rabadons second. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I'm going to be teaching you guys all you need to know about Syndra's abilities. And winning games on Syndra is all about landing these abilities, landing these skill shots. So the first section is going to be how to land our abilities, how to land our skill shots. The second section is going to be about understanding that Syndra is a 2 ability rotating champion. The third section is going to be about E usage, probably one of the hardest abilities to use properly in the game, since it can solo win and solo lose you games. And then finally at the end, I'm going to give you a few extra ability micro tips. So let's jump straight into the first section. How to land your abilities. It sounds much easier than that it actually is. So I've got some tools right here, and I'm going to give you guys some tips and some tricks and some strategies to actually land your abilities more consistently. And we're going to be showing you this through an example. I just want to put this out here because these are the most common options that you have. And we're really going to be hard focusing in on this first point right here, which is timing it with auto text, timing it with last hits. So let's jump straight into the example right here. So in this example, we're going to be purely focusing on my abilities. How and why do I throw each ability? Why does an ability hit? Why does an ability miss? So we're going to, every time I use an ability, we're going to stand still and we're going to dive deep into the ability, understanding what my thought process is, and really explaining this to you guys as well. So we're going to be starting off in the lane. What I'm looking to do is I'm looking to time my abilities with his last hits, because that's the easiest way for me to land my abilities when he's standing still, hitting a minion. So I'm looking at my low health minions and look at that. First Q lands. So that first Q right here, look at this creep. He's last hitting this creep. So I step up, I see that it's dropping low, and I throw my Q. Beautiful hit. And you see that before that, I just didn't throw my Q at all. Because if I would be throwing my Q before that, I'm skill checking. This, for example, is a skill checker. Sometimes you can skill check, but it isn't the highest value ability sometimes. Once again, I saw the minion dropping low right here, and I throw the Q onto Akshan's face. That's really the mindset that you're going to be having. Try to time your abilities with last hits, and then you're going to be in a very good spot in general, because a lot of players, especially in the lower ranks, will not fake their movement, will not fake their last hits, and you're going to get guaranteed abilities onto them every single time. This is going to be your most consistent tool to land these abilities. So there's going to be some other tools in here as well, not only timing with last hits. We also can, for example, use the terrain to our advantage. So we can use terrain to land skill shots. Why is that the case? Well, if Akshan is this close to this terrain thing right here, right? What we see is that he can only realistically dodge my skill shots in one direction. Because if I throw my QE right here, the only way that he can dodge is he can dodge up. That makes it really easy for me to use this terrain to actually throw my QE, because I know for a fact that he cannot really dodge down because he's anyways going to get hit by it. Plus, I actually combine the terrain with the minions dropping low. So I actually tick off 2 boxes. I throw the QE, not dodgeable, really easy passive stack in the pocket. Of course, I'm also going to make some mistakes when it comes to ability usage in this example. And we're also going to be breaking down why some of my abilities also miss. So this Q I tried to throw to make him lose the cannon, but he waited with last hitting. And that's why my Q right here missed. Then the E. Did you guys see him last hitting or hitting a minion or standing still? No, not at all. I was trying to skill check him right here and I got punished for it. I now lose my E, which is on such a long cooldown, and I lose a little bit of mana. So that was a really bad E. Next Q, I'm not sure you guys spotted, but the minion was dropping really low. He was standing still to last hit it. Free Q onto the Akshan. Really good ability usage. Okay, we're going to be skimming forward a little bit because there was some stuff going on. Next up, look at the minions, guys. The minions are dropping low. You see a minion dropping low here? You see a minion drop low? Nice. Q onto Akshan's face. Very easy to land. And then because you got too close to me, I'm also able to land my E. And this is just going to be the general mindset here. So Akshan is now in invisible modus. And I tried to Q on his linear movement, thinking he would look to see to harass me. But he dodges it very nicely with his movement. And therefore, I tried to skill check him right here. And I missed my abilities. As you can see, there's a real connection between if you time it with last hits and if you try to skill check the enemies, the hit percentage is just going to be so much higher. So right now I'm looking at the cannon. I'm looking at the cannon to actually deny him the last hit, but he gets too close to me, so I can actually opt in for an E into Q, which is a combo that we're going to be covering a little bit later. W onto the last hit, out attack plus Q onto him out attacking me. Him auto-attacking is the same as him last hitting because he's standing still. It's the same principle. So what you can also do is whenever you're like battling with someone in melee range or like in auto-attack range, you can just wait for their auto-attack animation and then throw your ability. That's how you're going to be landing these kill shots consistently. So look at what's going on here. You guys see the minion dropping low. I really want you to look at my own minions. Look at the minion dropping low. Boom. QE. Either he drops the CS or he gets hit by the ability. There is no in between because the tower was targeting it. So it's a win-win. In this case, I felt confident getting hovered by Bart. Bart goes for the stun, makes it really easy for me to land my Q afterwards. I'll give you guys a nice little breakdown of the possibilities on Syndra. All of the concept that we just discussed will be reiterated in the other parts of the guide. In the laning section, in the matchup section, all of these ability usage stuff will be reiterated. I will be deep diving into that as well. So I'm going to be introducing a very Syndra specific concept to you guys. And that's that Syndra is a 2 ability rotating champion. That means that whenever she wants to harass the enemies, she ideally uses 2 of her abilities to do so. And the reason why 2 abilities is ideal is because it gives us a passive stack. And Syndra skills very hard with passive stacks, plus it gives her mana back. And if you can constantly be using 2 abilities at a time, what's going to happen is that you are not going to really be running because you're not spamming too many abilities. Plus, you're going to be stacking up your passive. Plus, it also ties in beautifully with Syndra's actual cooldowns. Syndra has pretty long cooldowns on her E and onto her W, and she has a pretty short cooldown onto her Q. So what you can do is you can, for example, look for a Q into E, which is one of your classic abilities that you're going to be using. And then you can actually later, whenever your passive is back up, look for a W into Q. So these are going to be your classic combos that you're going to be constantly using onto the enemies in a 2 ability rotation. That's going to be the mindset, guys. Whenever you have an opportunity to trade, try to do it in a double ability rotation. So that's also the mindset that we're going to be showing you guys in this example. Right here, Kassadin goes up to the CS, QE onto his face. this is constantly something I'm going to be trying to do. Skim through until I've got my next E up here. I'm getting a nice little ward out. Always good to have a ward out, guys. And then I see that Kassadin goes for the CS, Q into E. And I'm not really losing much mana with it. I'm getting a passive stack. This is fantastic. So next time, what do I do right here is I want to pick up the W for a W into Q, but Kassadin gets too close, and I actually go for a Q into E. He was trying to get the cannon. And in this case, I actually used 3, which is not really ideal. But since I already picked up the W, it is what it is. I lose a little bit more mana for it. So right now, I'm constantly looking for a double ability rotation into the Kassadin. Once again, I look to fish for a W right here. Ideally, I go for a W into a Q, but he dodges the W. So then I still have the Q into E left right here. Once again, beautiful passive stack in the pocket. So right now, my W and my Q are coming back up. I could already use W and Q on top of him right here, but I don't because the passive stack is barely not ran out yet. And I really want to be timing that with my passive stack. So I wait. I go for W into Q, but I miss because he gives the creep. That's okay. The passive stack is now back up. So look what I do. Q into E onto the last hit. And we're stacking up our passive very, very quickly like this. So now I have the opportunity to go a W and a Q on top of him, but I wait because my passive stack is not up just yet. So I wait a little bit, and then look at what I do is right now I go for a Q, and I actually think that I should have thrown a W with it, and a little bit later I throw the W. I think I should have done a W into Q right there, getting the rotation going. Now I've got my Q and my E up already. But there's a specific reason I don't throw it out onto Kassadin instantly, is because I don't have my passive backup. So if I throw my QE out right now, I don't get a passive stack. So I wait a little bit with my QE. Very specific, I wait, and I try to time it onto a last hit. So that one he took with his Q. So we're having a little bit patience. We're having patience. And there he's going. Q into E onto the Kassadin, and I intentionally do not W him there. Because W would deal very little damage for a lot of mana, and it would not give me much at all. It would just be me using my mana. So look at the passive bar. I'm waiting with my abilities. I'm waiting, holding. W into Q, proccing the passive again. 2 ability rotating champion, guys. This is the mindset that I want you guys to constantly have in the lane, because this is how you're going to be stacking up your passive consistently and effectively. And of course, we want to be combining that with the previous theory that we discussed about how to land your skill shots. If you can combine these 2 things, you're already rock and rolling like so incredibly well. You're on the right path if you can do that consistently. So we're going to be talking about Syndra's E. And it's probably one of the hardest abilities to use properly in the game. The amount of detail and amount of information gathering necessary to make the right calls on this ability is insane. And the reason why it's one of the hardest abilities in the game is because it is Syndra's main offensive tool and it's her main defensive tool. And what is going to happen most of the time is that you in your brain are going to be thinking, okay, I can use it in either of these ways, but that's going to leave blind spots towards the other part of using this ability. So you're going to have the feeling that you can do something with your E, because normally your E would be able to defend you, but then actually your E cannot defend you because you just use it offensively. So that's what makes this ability so incredibly hard to use. And I'm going to be showing you an example of an offensive usage of the E, which is in this specific case versus Kha'Zix jungle. This is a nice offensive usage of the E. Beautiful stuff. And we're also going to see it nicely defensive right here, in which that I actually get ganked by the enemy Viego. Ahri ults onto me, charms me, but because I have my stun up and I can actually stun the Viego before he can reach me, he cannot gank me. It's a beautiful defensive ability like that. So now where stuff gets messed up is when you actually think you can use your ability of E offensively, but then you get caught off guard defensively. So I use my E right here offensively, and guess what happens? I instantly get Nunu ganked right here, and I die. Plus I lose my flash. Disaster. So right here, I think I can actually use my E offensively, but I do not register the fact that that makes me vulnerable instantly. Because now my E is on such a long cooldown. That's why this ability has such a long cooldown, by the way. It's because it's so broken both offensively and defensively. And because it's on cooldown, I'm then going to get obliterated by either the Gragas and the Nunu in combination by them. So this also translates into lane. This means that in some lanes, we are forced to reactively E because we cannot play with our E on cooldown. And in other matchups, which have a little bit less threat onto us, we are actually able to use our E proactively. So you always got to look at the position in the lane, not only lane, but also in the game in general, and really ask yourself the question, especially in the review, was this E fine proactively, or did I have to hold it reactively? So a good example of a reactive E is here with Tristana. In this matchup, this Tristana is constantly looking to jump on your face. I'm going to be re-showing it here again. Tristana is constantly looking to jump on your face, so you can use your E to get her off you and keep her on range right here. But what happens, right, when you are actually in a position where you have your E on cooldown is that if Triss still has her jump, she can then jump onto you. So right here, I feel safe that I can use my E forwards onto the Triss here because I'm in the tower. So I'm like, nice, I can use my E forward. But what happens is now my E is on cooldown. And I forget that my E is on cooldown. And Triss just jumps onto me and trades insanely heavily onto me. This is the classic example of both the upsides and the downsides of this ability. So this is a little bit more theoretical, what we just discussed. What we're now going to do is, I want you to just keep this in mind. This is going to be a driving force between like a lot of your good and your mistakes in your games. This is going to win you games. This is going to lose you games. This is incredibly hard to do. After like hundreds of Syndra games, I still make the mistake of sometimes using my E wrong. That means that even the best Syndra players in Knight, in just Knight, Showmaker, the best in our place, they will also make these mistakes, guys. This will happen to everyone. The most important thing is to learn from it in the review. So I'm going to now move into E tips, because E is most of the time still going to be your offensive ability where you're going to be making kills with. So, but also it's going to have it has a lot of different offensive tools. One of these is the E into Q combo. And the reason why I'm such a fan of the E into Q combo is because it can guarantee us a stack. It's really unskilled and it basically guarantees you hitting your Q as well. So what happens right here is I'm laning versus Ahri, and this is a nice little sequence, is whenever Ahri gets too close to me, what I can just do is I can bounce her back with E first, and I can then Q after my E to make it undodgeable my Q, and that gives me just the passive splinter stacks. That's a very, very good ability, like rotation to use versus champions that are a little bit lower range, that are getting in your range, and that you don't necessarily need to stun, but you do want to play for the passive stack. That's the mindset for the E into Q. Definitely one that you guys need to be playing around with in practice tool or just in the lane and 1v1s. You need to practice it because it's so good at getting guaranteed damage off and getting a guaranteed splinter stack. One of my next tricks, one of my next favorite things to do is a lot of people will expect you to stun with QE. So what they are looking for is they're looking for the Q on the ground. That's what they are specifically looking for. So whenever this Ornn is standing on a tower here getting dove, what he's looking for is he's looking for the Q on the ground so he can start Wing and cancel my stun. Of course, he's going to get damaged by it, but he's going to cancel the actual stun because his W makes him unstoppable. Right? So that's what a lot of people are looking for. They're looking for the QE. But what you can do is you can actually go for a WE. And this guy does not see it coming and therefore instantly gets wrecked by my stun into into the full combo, right? And I want to specify one more thing about this W into E, is the W into E is also faster than the Q into E. It's slightly faster. You can try it out. You can time it in practice tool, guys. The WE is faster than the QE. So keep that in mind. This is much better than a QE because it's less visible, because you're also throwing the W in a curve. So the enemies will not know where to dodge because it's super hard to visualize it because you're throwing it in a curve right here. That makes it also very bullshit. And what you also have to understand is that wherever you W, the damage will still land. So if you WE into here and you aim your W, for example, right here, the damage of W will still apply here, even though you shoot the ball afterwards. Do keep in mind that post level, at least post your W upgrade, your W is usually the ability that deals the most damage because it has extra true damage to it. So you do got to keep in mind that if you use your W like that, it's going to be hurting you a little bit in the damage department of your combo. Enough theory. Let's go to the next example right here after showing it one more time. Beautiful little WE. Okay, next one is going to be the E on an existing Q. So what you can do a lot is you can actually overwhelm enemy mental stack and Q first, and then go stand in the direction of where this arrow is facing. So you see this beautiful little arrow here. If you throw your E, that's the direction in which the ball will go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line Kai'Sa up with the already existing ball. And that's going to be able to lead to a lot of free solo kills a lot of times, guys. It's going to be catching a lot of people off guard just in general. So next up, we actually got the double ball stun. So let me enlighten you while we play through this clip. The double ball stun is a way of stunning people, which makes it incredibly hard for the enemies to dodge. This is a nice little sequence in which that I use the double ball stun consistently and basically overwhelm the enemy's mental stack with it and make it really hard for the enemies to dodge. So we're going to be breaking down how do you do the double ball stun and why do we do the double ball stun. So the double ball stun means that we first throw a Q on the ground, we pick it up with the W, and then let's see what happens right here is we throw the W in one direction. So we throw the W right here and we throw a Q right here. So now instead of just stunning with one ball, we are actually increasing our chances of landing a stun depending on where the Riven is going towards. So a double ball stun in this case, I just shot out two balls. One went to there and one went to there. And this one stunned the Riven right here. A double ball stun makes it incredibly hard, almost impossible if you throw it correctly, to dodge your stun by an enemy champion. Do keep in mind, you use two of your abilities. So if you go for a double ball stun, your damage is going to be lacking. You're mainly using it with the mindset of, I need to stun people right now. Next example right here. You see how I throw one ball here, one ball here. Now I'm going to be Eing in this direction. So one ball is going to fly right there and one ball is going to fly onto the Zeri. Let's show it. One onto the Zeri, one behind the Nexus. And I'm going to do it once more right here, which shows it beautifully as well. I pick up the ball. I throw one ball right there. I throw my Q right here. So now it has a much wider angle in which that the stun is undodgeable because there's two balls. So the stun is literally undodgeable right here. Let's show how it actually plays out. Boom, nice two-man stun right there. Fantastic job on the double ball stun. Must know combo if you're looking for picks specifically. Mainly if you have follow-up with the rest of your team, that combo is fantastic to use. Next up, we got the R into E. So there's multiple use cases of an R into E. Let's just play it out. What we see with an R into E is that you can get so many balls on the ground that it's impossible to miss your stun once again. As you can see, I Q, R, E into another Q, guaranteeing my damage, making it impossible for the Fizz to dodge. So that's one way that you can use it. You can Q, R, E and get a guaranteed bit of damage. And in that case, you're really setting up all of these balls for the stun. So in this specific case, look at all the balls on the ground right here. So because I used my R a little bit earlier, the enemies are all walking through the choke point, 4-man stun, winning the team fight right here. Just because I've got all the R balls on the ground and then using my E, which scatters everything and then hits everyone. Just to show it one more time, guys, because it's just beautiful. It's really, really good. Look at all the balls on the ground. That's the main thing that I want you guys to look at. We got an insane amount of balls on the ground right here. And we all throw them out into every single one of the enemies except for the Zeri that dodged it. And getting a like absolutely game-winning team fight stun right here. So we got some more E usage tips. A goal is to land your E lots of the time. Because if you can land your E, you can follow up with the rest of your damage. The stun is a crucial part of your kit. It also sets up very well for a lot of your teammates. So Another trick that you can use to almost guarantee landing your stun is make sure that the enemies don't see you throwing the stun. Because if they don't see you throwing the stun, they will not anticipate the stun coming and they will not dodge it. So what you do is you sit in Fog of War. If you look at Kai'Sa's POV, she does not see, she sees this, she sees everything. She does not see me behind the ledge. I see her because of the creeps. So what do? QE into W, free splinter stack, free trade. Very easy. This also works in a little bit more late game situations where you can use Fog of War to basically nuke people, one-shot people. You got the area control. I know that the enemies do not have any vision on this. Diana walks in through the choke point, into the full combo, insta one-shot. And this is really how you're going to be winning most of your Syndra games. People disrespecting your vision, people walking into you blindly, you getting an E-stun into a full-on one-shot. It's very, very, very strong on Syndra. So that's it going to be for E usage. We're going to now move on to the extra ability tips. So finally, I have a few more extra tips in Syndra's ability usage that we haven't really covered, but I think are good to put out there. So one of them is that you can use your slow as a setup, and this can go many ways because your W slows if you land it. So it's actually really low. You don't really invest much by just throwing out the W and seeing if it lands, because if you land the slow, like here, it can set up for the rest of your abilities. Like this. It makes it really easy to land your skill shots if someone is slowed. So you can use your own W as setup for the rest of your kit. Of course, you always got to put it in perspective. Do I want to be using 2 abilities onto the enemies? Do I want to be playing in a rotation of 2? Do I just want to be like fully nuking them with the rest of my kit? Always put it in perspective. What is my goal behind the ability? Depending on your goal, you can look for just a passive splinter stack with a nice clean W into Q. This is the classic. But if you want more damage and you just purely play for the damage and not really for the splinter stack, then you can do like a full combo. But always keep in mind that now you have very long cooldowns and it takes a little bit longer to get back into the action again. So that's a nice little W tip. Another tip that I think is really important is holding abilities. So what you're going to be seeing a lot, right, is that you're going to be able to get level 2 first against a lot of matchups, especially if you're going to be out-attacking a lot. And whenever you want to throw your skill shots, especially if against people that maybe like Emerald Plus, they will start expecting you to throw these skill shots. They will start trying to dodge it, trying to juke you out. So what you can do a lot is you can actually hold your abilities and let them juke themselves out. So what I like to do is whenever I'm in a very strong position, I like to just walk at them, not instantly throw my abilities, but rather wait a little bit. So to show it one more time, I could have thrown it, but right now I go first for an auto attack into QE and then back off. Holding your abilities, very nice way to overwhelm the enemy mental stack and make it hard for them to really dodge your ability. Next up, we can prepare our Qs. So this has a lot to do with our R, because the more balls we have on the ground, the more damage our ult actually deals. So what we can do is we can, knowing what that maybe someone's going to walk into us, what we can do is we can actually prepare our balls on the ground, just like I'm doing right here. I got a lot of balls on the ground, and that gives me a big chunk onto this Lucian and makes my R deal more damage. So you can prepare it in advance, especially if you're sitting in Fog of War. Prepare your Qs in advance. It's going to make your ult deal more damage. Then, another example right here with max damage R. It's a little bit of a different example because I'm actually fighting the Ahri and I'm not really sitting in Fog of War and one-shotting her. But I'm just using my abilities at the right time. So first, I go for QE into WQ, landing everything. If I would be ulting here, what would happen is that I would not kill. I know that because I've played hundreds of Syndra games. So I would not kill just yet. So what do is I recognize, okay, I've got 5 ball ult right now. But my Q is coming up in 2 seconds. So what I can do is I can actually wait a little bit. Wait, and then Q into R to get the 6 ball R. You can look at it right here. To get an extra bit of damage on the R. And really amplify your damage and do maximum damage that you can do. And this is going to be sometimes the difference maker between you actually killing the target and not killing the target. We're going to be talking about Syndra's lane. First and foremost, what we want to be doing every single lane, the overall mindset is to get to Q upgrade and get to Lost Chapter as soon as possible. we really want to be focusing on hitting every single creep, because that makes our scaling into the mid and late game much, much better. Of course, we still want to be playing opportunistically, and we want to start trading with the small wins, or in other words, the 100 for 0 mindset. So what does this mean? This means that we don't take much damage in return, but we actually are able to slowly chip away at the enemy's HP bar, and eventually these smaller wins will turn into bigger wins. The way that we're going to be doing that is we're going to be timing our abilities with the enemy last hits. And we're going to try in the early lane to throw our abilities in a rotation of 2. This is mainly for the early lane, but towards the later lane, we're not going to really be doing this anymore. We also got to think about each matchup. How does each matchup force us to use E? There are certain champions in the game that force you to use your E reactively. A very good example is, for example, Tristana. But there's also matchups that you basically can use E freely and whatever, however you want. Of course, the jungle matchup and the enemy support matchup also ties in together with this, but we're currently mainly looking at mid lane itself. We shouldn't overcomplicate it with the other champs in the game just yet. We do want to avoid early game chaos, like invades and early game skirmishes onto Scuttle and stuff like that. Usually, that's not really in our favor. Sometimes it is, but more often than not, it isn't. What you have to understand is in these type of situations, it's super important to always prioritize yourself. So if your wave state is in a good spot, feel free to move. If you have the enemy mid laner under pressure and you got control, feel free to move. But if you are not in a happy spot to move, don't move and call it off. Always prioritize yourself. And we always want to understand that we want to play the waves in accordance to how the matchup forces us to use the wave. So let's move on to the matchup section and then into the examples. As for the matchup, I've categorized them in different ways, so you guys understand what your approach should be regarding what champion that you're playing against. And I've also divided it in runes. So we're going to start off with the utmost category, which is the offensive first strike matchups. These are matchups that are actually quite weak, levels 1 to 5, and that you can play first strike into because these champions usually run Doran's shield. So if you're going to be playing for an early game rune like Ahri or Comet, most of the times your poke is not going to be able to stick. There's also like the case of Galio. He's just got a lot of MR. It's just hard to get through him. So these are matchups that you cannot really like poke down too much, but you can actually play offensive. You can actually be on the front foot looking for your passive splinters and looking to stack up first strike as much as possible into these type of matchups. So this is offensive first strike matchups. Then you got defensive first strike matchups, which is these champions. They can actually jump onto you really quickly. They can get very nasty trades, but they're also really hard to kill and they're really hard to pressure out. And Yasuo and Aurelia is there because you don't want to, and Katarina are there in a way because you don't want to be playing onto the wrong lane. We got very specific strategies against these matchups. I'm going to be showing you guys examples of how to navigate these type of matchups and get to a good spot in the game. Then you got offensive Ahri matchups and offensive /Comet /Ahri matchups. What you see the trend is offensive Ahri matchups are lower range matchups. So these are matchups that you're going to be constantly hitting with your auto attacks, with your abilities. So Ahri makes a little bit more sense than Comet. These other champions which you want to be playing offensively into are matchups that are actually a little bit longer range. So you can take Ahri, you can take Comet, depending on what you prefer. So let's talk a little bit about these offensive Ahri matchups. Why do we take Ahri in these type of matchups? Well, these are mainly assassins and champs that want to get onto your face. And the common trend between these assassins is that they're actually quite weak in the early game, and that bone plating works incredibly well versus these champions. So what you want to be doing is you want to take sorcery into resolve rune page into these type of matchups, and maybe Silas is an exception and Diana, but the rest you can definitely run that rune page. And what you want to understand is that Ahri is a really good rune to take into these matchups because these champions work with kill threat. And the lower that you can get these champions, the lower kill threat they have on you, because you actually then get kill threat on them. That's why Ahri is so incredibly good versus these matchups. And the beauty about getting these guys lower and pressuring these guys early Also means that you can be a little bit more flexible in your secondary rune page with the resolve, with the precision, depending on what you deem necessary for these type of matchups. Then we got the classic mages, mid-range to long-range mages right here. We're all trying to play offensive. We're all trying to win. And these are just classic mage versus mage matchups, which you want to be getting the push into. You want to be pressuring these guys, timing your abilities onto last hits. We're going to be showing examples of these as well. And then finally, we also got defensive Comet or Ahri matchups, which are basically matchups that you still want to be playing to poke these guys out, make their life really hard, because also these champs have very little sustain. But then you cannot really be too proactive, because these champs will just dash on your head. If you don't use your E reactively in this matchup, you will get annihilated, because all these champs have dashes to get onto your face. And that's not the case with this category of matchups right here, where you can use your E offensively and not that much defensively. So what examples are we going to be looking at? Well, we're going to be looking at an example versus an Akali and a Kassadin for the offensive first strike matchups. For defensive, we're going to be looking at Katarina and Yasuo. For offensive Ahri matchups, we're going to be taking a look at Ekko and Fizz. For offensive Comet Ahri matchups, we're going to be taking a look at Hwei, Lux, Ahri. All very common matchups, what we're looking at here. I really wanted to pick the right matchups for you guys. And then we're going to, as defensive Comet Ahri matchups, we're looking at Akshan and Lucian. And that's NISQY's Lucian that I played against, which brings a good example, of course. What I recommend is in Diamond Plus, your bench should be LeBlanc, because not necessarily because the matchup's not playable. No, the matchup is actually completely fine. It's a little bit annoying, but it's fine. The most annoying thing about this matchup is that it's a little bit unintuitive, and if you just lose control in the early lane because of how much stronger LeBlanc is. LeBlanc has the control and the agency in the trades. Personally, I don't like losing control. That's why in Diamond Plus I recommend banning LeBlanc. Before Diamond, if you're not Diamond Plus, what you can do is you can ban either of these matchups, is what I actually recommend. Maybe the Yasuo, maybe the Aurelia, maybe you hate Kata, maybe Fizz is the bane of your assistant, but for most people it might just be Zed. Who knows? I recommend choosing any of these. Which one do you get annoyed by the most, and ban that one out. Let's jump straight into the examples, guys. So it's matchup time, and in this example we're going to be starting off versus Akali. So in these type of matchups in which that you want to play offensively with first strike, what you're trying to do in the early levels is you're trying to slow push your wave, and you're really trying to time your abilities with the enemy's last hits, and you're trying to stack up your first strike. Because if we can do that, that's when we're going to be regenerating a lot of gold, and we really aim to get to our Lost Chapter plus Q upgrade as fast as possible in these type of matchups. As you can see, I'm really doing a nice job timing my Qs onto the Akali's last hits, really pressuring here, and getting a little bit of HP gone onto her. Our mindset with trading into the Akali is we're mainly trading to try and make her lower, so it's harder for her to trade onto me. In this case, I slightly mess up and forget that she gets a level 2 timer. Sometimes that happens, guys. But still, I hit my creeps here, and what also happens is that I get a nice passive stack onto the Akali. So we're just in an okay spot right now. And if I'm continuously slow building into the Akali, I'm pretty happy. One thing to keep in mind is this is a matchup that you can use your E aggressively like this, but do be careful that whenever Akali has her Shroud up and you don't have E, she might get very annoying and she might run at you. So you always got to be careful of the downtime of your E, but you should be able to use your E proactively in the early lane. But mainly, we're trying to just get our passive stacks, slow build into the Akali, and make her sweat for creeps. So that was a very nice Q, very nice W, really getting another passive stack, pressuring her, nicely timed with my first strike as well. And I'm trying to look onto her with another QE, maybe, or a WQ. In this case, beautiful QE, getting that passive stack onto her again. Overall, doing a pretty fantastic job, staying quite healthy right here, and just getting my farm, getting my passive stacks. That's really what I'm trying to achieve. Sometimes I'm just throwing out these random Qs. Mainly it's timed with my first strike. In this case, beautiful W afterwards as well, with another beautiful ability rotation. As you can see, it doesn't really stick to her damage-wise, But I've done enough damage to her that I can actually force her to reset, pressure her a little bit, and that means that I can just hold the wave, and I'm trying to extend this lane until Lost Chapter. So that's also why I cancel her right there. Not because not because of the fact that I can kill her or something like that, but I cancel her to extend the lane. If she doesn't reset right now, I can extend the lane a little bit longer, and eventually, that's my goal. I just want to get to Lost Chapter plus refillable potion and to my Q upgrade. So I get another passive stack. I've done a pretty decent job getting passive stacks in this lane. And what we're also seeing right here is that, yeah, we're just doing a very decent job just slowing it down. Yes, we're getting a little bit lower here, but that's okay. As long as I keep in mind that I don't let Akali kill me and really focus on getting my creeps, I should be able to just get a reset real soon. And that's exactly what's happening right here. She stays, so I stay for another wave. And eventually, after getting this wave, what we'll see is I'll just take my reset, get my Lost Chapter plus refillable potion. And now we're in a fantastic spot here in the lane. So we can continue this a little bit until we have our Q upgrade. We're aiming to get it around level 7. If we can get our Q upgrade at level 7, we're in a pretty happy position here. So right now, I got 35 stacks. So if I just continue laning like this, I'm going to be getting my Q upgrade at level 7. And in that case, we have basically completed our mini objective. That's like the real thing that we're trying to achieve here. We're getting a beautiful gank by the Camille, and eventually that allows us to kill the Akali here as well. Getting the level 7, getting the Q upgrade, pushing the wave, and that is really the early lane, guys. Just slow push into these type of matchups. Hit your passive stacks. Play gold with your first strike. Get rich. Get farmed up. And that's how we set ourselves up for success. So in this lane, we're going to be playing against a Kassadin. And a Kassadin is a champion, just like Kill, that is just incredibly worthless pre-level 6. And versus these type of champions, you actually want to have slightly different strategies, for example, towards the Yone and the Akali. Because these champions, we can just completely disrespect in the early lane. Like, these champions won't be able to do much into you at all. So we are constantly going to be slow building waves into them. And we're really constantly looking to get our passive stacks. Like, that's our overarching goal. These matchups allow us to hit every creep. These matchups allow us to hit a lot of passive stacks. So constantly try to pressure these guys onto their last hits, pressure them onto their minions, and get these passive stacks stacking up, guys. That's the main thing that I want you to do. So we go for a nice two-wave crash. Two-wave crashing into these type of champions, into the Kassadin, for example, is really good because you get a lot of harass windows. You can get a lot of harass windows on wave 1 and 2. And right now, in the tower, harassing them onto the casters is also a fantastic strategy to use. So once again, I'm happy just continuously slow building. And if I draw some jungle pressure, I make sure to have a ward out so I can actually lean. And I should be decently fine, because Kassadin is not going to be adding much value towards a gank if the enemy champion decides to gank me. So constantly looking to get these passive stacks, trying to hit the farm. Don't miss the cannon like I do, guys. That's a very big tip. Don't miss the cannon like I do. And these guys, they're usually running Doran's Shield, right? So if they're running Doran's Shield, it's going to be very hard for us to like chip down at their HP bar. That's just the reality of the situation, and that's okay. That's not necessarily our goal. Our goal is not to solo kill them yet. I'm joking. Our goal is not to solo kill them. Our goal is to just skill up, hit more farm than they do, build the CS lead, get the passive splinter stacks, and set ourselves up for success later in the game. That's exactly what we're doing. We're constantly slow building waves into the enemies, pressuring them on their last hits. So you can see that right here. In this case, we go for a Q into a W. There's many ways to get a passive stack. Of course, some are a little bit more consistent than others. Do keep in mind, especially if we're running the first strike page, which is what's going to happen a lot in these type of lanes, we do not have infinite mana, guys. If you mess up your abilities too much, if you miss too many abilities, or you don't get enough passive procs, or you don't throw in rotations of 2, you will run because that way you won't be regenerating your mana. And we're not running a single mana rune, which means that if we eventually run what's going to happen is we're going to get stuck in lane before we can reset onto Lost Chapter plus refillable potion. And ideally, that is what we're actually playing for, because that's the big spike. I mean, Lost Chapter is the must. Refillable potion is a nice bonus. So that makes this play that I do right here, the QE onto Belvev, a really big mistake. Because if I miss that one, now I'm suddenly While I was in a really good position, I kind of want to extend the lane for 200 more gold, because that way I get to my big spike. But right now, I kind of messed it up, so I have to be a little bit more careful now, especially with my mana expenditure, because I cannot really use it onto the Kassadin right here, because, well, I don't have the mana, so it's not much more complicated than that. So I'm really just trying to extend the lane, slow it down, and I see a beautiful reset window right here. So I reset on 1300 gold. I still got 2 potions, so I get my lost chapter. I'm a refill addict, so I sell my 2 normal pots for a refill, which doesn't even make sense. It's better to just keep the 2 normal pots and get the lost chapter plus like a control ward, but I don't know. I'm a strange guy like that. But right now we're in a fantastic position right here. So right now, these champions might get a little bit more agency. These Kassadins, these Akalis, these Yones, they might get a little bit more agency. And what you have to do is you have to understand that right now, since we have Lost Chapter, we actually do pack a punch. Especially if we're going to get Q upgrade plus Lost Chapter, we will start dealing damage. So you are fine just trading on them a little bit more. And especially, you need to be using your R wisely. You want to be using your R in a way that it reduces lane pressure. Because if we are constantly under lane pressure, we're going to be struggling. Versus Kassadin, the thing that I have to constantly keep in mind is I never want to get plainly hit by his ult. I always want to be tethering his R range. If I can tether his R range just in general, I'm in a pretty happy spot. And I still want to be timing my abilities with last hits. Because the main damage from Kassadin is going to be if he can directly R on top of you. That's something that I want to avoid. And these Kassadins and these other champs will eventually look to up the aggression a little bit. And as long as you use your abilities wisely, you're going to be able to withstand this aggression, actually match that. So I'm going to be showing a very good example of that right here, as I'm just farming. I hold the wave right now, by the way. Instead of constantly slow building into them, 2 waves, I'm now trying to play it even a little bit slower. So maybe a little bit more neutral, a little bit more towards my side. And if I ever get to build a big slow wave into them, that's still fine. The wave management slightly changes here. I think it's good to mention that. So we're going to be reaching the level 7. We get the Q upgrade. So right now we really start packing a punch right here. We're in a fantastic position. And as you can see, I'm just slow building the wave into the Kassadin here. I'm very controlled. Make sure that I hit all of my, my creeps. And what happens right here is that Kassadin jumps in. I get a trade on top of him. And he jumps in again. So I activate my red pot plus my R. And this is how I get lane control. Look how low he is. It's really hard for him to play right now. Purely because I use my R for lane control, I have a lot of balls on the ground. This is stuff that you want to do if these champs get too close in your comfort zone. Just ult them, just pressure them, just put them out of their lane like that. Reduce their pressure by reducing their HP bar. That's the goal in these type of matchups. That's how you're going to be able to survive them and basically get in the position where you're not getting solo killed all the time. And yes, of course, if the enemies make mistakes, in this case, Kassadin ulted in, feel free to just feel free to just trade onto them. We must trade to keep ourselves healthy, to keep ourselves strong, and to reduce the pressure in the lane. We cannot just go ahead and do nothing. We always gotta trade with balanced aggression, but make sure that priority number 1, stay healthy yourself so you're never in kill range. So next up, we got the matchup category of defensive first strike matchups. So why are these matchups defensive? Well, that's because we have a very specific wave management trick that we want to be doing into these type of matchups. Plus, we want to be using our E in a defensive manner because these champ all have the possibility to dash upon to us and we're not really happy with that. So my strategy into these matchups is to let them push into us. Level 1, don't try to slow build into the enemies because you're too weak to actually crash the wave. These guys can always trade on top of you. And what you want to do in these type of matchups is try to get your first strike, use your E reactively like this, stay healthy, which is the number 1 most important thing, and never let yourself get frozen upon. Priority number 1 is these matchups. Don't ever get frozen upon onto the enemy side. Make sure that they're always either neutral, very slow pushing into the enemies, or the wave is actually ideally very slowly pushing into you. So I'm constantly trying to keep the wave into this pocket right here. That would be absolutely ideal for me because this is going to allow me to stay safe underneath my turret. And that's because I'm so close to my turret, I can then also use my E a little bit more offensively instead of purely having it to use it to defensively. So that's the strategy in between these versus these type of champions. And the goal, you have to understand, these matchups are hard. You're not playing to win, guys. You are playing to scale up. You're playing to out teamfight them, because these champions are so hard to play in the mid to late game that these champions will mess up. The players will mess up, and you will out teamfight them. You will be more useful than them. As long as you can go even, maybe go 10 CS down in lane, you're in such a happy position. These champs are made to pressure you in the lane. The matchups aren't easy. Accept it and understand that you're going to be strong in a different part of the game. So it's not going to be rocket science what I'm going to be doing, guys. I'm just going to let myself get pushed in all the time. And if the wave ever gets pushed into the Yasuo, what I either do is I make sure that I stand inside of the wave. So whenever he trades onto me, he also thins out the wave. Or I make sure that I build the wave so slowly that I actually am able to crash the wave and make it hard for them to hold me. Or I need to call my jungle. That's also a possibility. And I'm just really happy just catching all the farm. Make sure that you hit as many creeps as possible. Constantly, whenever the wave meets out neutral, try to let him get the first hit. Don't use your AoE abilities too much onto the wave, because that might compromise the situation and let the wave push into them. If you're playing against a competent player, they will actually try to freeze the wave on their side. That's something that we're avoiding at all costs. Don't miss the cannon like I do, guys. It's really important we get those cannons on Syndra. Keep that in mind. But yeah, what you see is like, I'm just chilling here, right? I'm happy just extending the lane, taking it easy, making sure that we don't have any skirmishes around. I don't want to fight on the map right now because I will lose. I'm very weak. And I'm just scaling up myself. That's the mindset here, guys. Just scale up yourself. It's the reality of the situation. Is we're not really playing to win, unless the enemies mess up, of course. And you know what? They will mess up sooner or later. And in this specific situation, what we're seeing is I got my gold for my lost chapter. I also could like wait for the refillable potion right here. That's why I cancel my reset. I bait him in hard pushing with my reset, and then I actually cancel my reset right here to grab the rest of these minions in the tower, because then I can actually afford my refillable potion. It's going to allow me to stay in lane a little bit longer. So, small tip, guys. Very, very small tip. People are going to love stuff like this. Is level 1 E, right, does not put the casters in tower range. So, a very nice little bonus tidbit. For the people that watch the entire guide, this might be helping you guys. I hope so, at least. So that puts the minions in a very good HP range to last it in the tower then. So we just take the reset right now. We grab ourselves the lost chapter. We grab ourselves the refillable. We've completed part 1 of our first reference point. Right now we're trying to get the Q upgrade. Continuously keep the farm as high as possible. Of course, we're still a little bit on the back foot. Yasuo is still a little bit stronger. I got a small tempo advantage. Gonna try to get a nice little ward out on top side right here, since that's what the next objective is. Even though I doubt if we're going to be able to contest that. And in this case, I am actually fine using my E a little bit aggressive, because I see that he's pushing the wave anyway. He's constantly been pushing all the time. So I'm happy just trying to get a passive stack right now. And if necessary, I can always just start pushing with the help of my team right here. You can see that the Braum is here. The downside, right, is if it's just the Braum, I'm pretty sure that the Yasuo can just 2v1 us. I'm serious. That champ is strong in the early game. And his wind wall can block so much of me. So there's some stuff happening onto the grubs. This is not necessarily ideal. But in this specific case, it's actually okay. Because of the fact that we get quite a decent ability with an R into E. Can have very guaranteed stun. Doesn't necessarily mean that the fight's perfect. We still get completely annihilated right here. This is what you can see. Yasuo is really strong. I am not that strong. But we actually trade, I think it's a 3-for-3. We can be generally pretty happy with a situation like this. So we're going to slightly fast forward right here. Coming back to lane. As you can see, I'm doing okay. For this matchup being so bad, I'm in a fine position. I'm chilling. I'm really happy like this. So once again, I'm just going to be trying to keep the wave on my side, keep it neutral. In this case, I'm holding the cannon, seeing what Yasuo does, because the cannon forces the wave to start pushing back into me again. I slightly miss tether and I lose a little bit of HP for it. Thankfully, I do have a refillable potion. Proccing first strike in these matchup, guys, it's a bonus. It's something that you can do, but not something that you have to do. It's mainly just surviving and just hitting up your item spikes. Usually in these type of matchups, unless the enemies mess up a lot, you will actually only get your Q upgrade at level 8, because it's really hard to continuously hit the enemies with your abilities. We got a little bit of shenanigans going on right here on top side. And in this case it works because I think the enemy Leona inted, and we get a pretty nice we get a pretty nice stun onto the Volibear, finish him off with the R, and right now the game is starting to look in a really good position. My champion, even though I'm still slightly behind in the 1v1 versus the Yasuo, is still in a really good spot right here, because what I noticed, right, is like in the mid to late game, you will outskill these guys purely because their champ's too hard to execute in most games. In most cases, it's too hard to play these champs, so your champ's just going to be directly more effective. So next up, we got Katarina. And Katarina, we approach the same way as Yasuo. So in this particular example, I didn't take first strike because I was actually trying out this setup into Katarina. And the only reason it worked was because Katarina went for Doran's Blade and no second wind. So what you'll actually see is that a lot of Katarinas will actually respect and go for Doran's Shield, and in that case, always first strike's better. So into Katarina, what you want to do, same strategy. Katarina's Q AoEs the wave. So what you can do is you can force her to push into you. And if you ever look to Q her, try to do that outside of the minions so you don't hit the minion wave too much with it. And what you're going to see is that Katarina is going to try to jump in on you every once in a while. And you can just get a passive stack whenever she does that. So the main reason why getting yourself pushed in versus Katarina is so good is because Katarina almost has no wave clear. And if she has no wave clear, what's going to happen is she constantly needs to walk up to hit the minions. And whenever she's constantly walking up to hit the minions, what's going to happen is that you're going to be able to pressure her and hit her and thin out the minion wave. Because of her low wave control, this wave state for Zakata, especially pre-6, is optimal because she cannot really roam at the moment as well. So you're just really happy with this wave. And as you can see, right, she's just getting hit by all of my abilities, and it's really, really hurting for her. In this case, she also has aggressive setup, so that means that she deals more damage than me as well. You can really see it right here. I can zone her off the wave, and eventually I get this beautiful, beautiful kill with the Ahri and getting her flash. So she's in a tough position right now because she also has got no TP. So let's continue a little bit how I do. I match her reset right now. Usually I would like to stay a little bit longer until Lost Chapter plus refillable potion, but the reason I actually match her reset right here is because she just fucked up, and I'm going to pressure her for it. I'm going to make her sweat for it now too. So with this same wave state right here, what I can do is I can continuously start harassing her because she still hasn't cleared the wave. So what's going to happen is she's going to come into the wave right here. I'm going to go for an E into W. And the reason why this E is fine is because she cannot really jump onto me because the wave is so close to my tower. Plus, I'm so close to my tower myself that I don't really have... I'm not really under threat of getting jumped on by her. So the same principles apply. Time your Qs just like this one. Beautiful Q timed with the last hit onto the last hit, and make sure that you don't continuously go for the same pattern, because Katarina's E is instantaneously, as you guys can see, and can dodge your abilities. So don't constantly QE or like WQ. Switch it up a little bit. Don't make her too certain about her trading patterns or ability usage. In this case, beautiful E into Q, E into W once again, constantly playing onto the passive, and she's like really getting annihilated right here. I'm hitting every ability, and in this case, Leona helps to secure her push, but she messes up, gets hit by my abilities. I just out-attack her down 2v1, and from this point, yeah, the lane is just so over for her. Even though it should be a very beneficial matchup for the Katarina, her lane is absolutely done. She got obliterated. She didn't have a good strategy. And the funny thing is that I played against the same player 3 other times this week, and he constantly adapted his strategy, and until the point that he actually started beating me. This was the first time I faced him. The game afterwards, I still beat him. But the 2 games afterwards, they were a little bit more even. And I think that the final one, he completely annihilated me. So he also evolved really well as a player. And he started taking Doran's Shield second wind, because otherwise he was just going to get annihilated by my strategy and setup, of course. So small little funny tidbit to add on to you guys. So the next category of matchup is going to be the offensive Ahri matchups. Funnily enough, in both of these examples, I actually took Comet because I was testing Comet out at the time, and I can definitely say for certain Ahri would have been so much more useful. But still, it doesn't really matter too much for the example's purposes. So in these type of matchups, what we have to understand is that we're playing against champions with lower range that want to get you lower, because these champs operate with kill threat. So most important thing in these matchups is stay healthy. Stay healthy and try to slowly chip away at the enemy's HP bar. So when these guys are less healthy, it's going to be harder for them to find all-in windows on top of you. That's the main thing that you want to be looking out for. So that means that E usage is going to be pretty important to understand and get right. But also the wave management. We constantly want to be slow building into these enemies. Play for the slow build. If we mess up wave management, we're going to be struggling a lot. So we're going to start off with this first Q. Beautiful Q onto a last hit. Really trying to punish the Fizz whenever he goes for last hit. That's going to be my mindset right here. What you have to understand is that in this matchup, I took bone plating because Fizz is a very burst-oriented champion. And this bone plating is going to allow me to survive, at least deny him a lot of trading windows. And the main thing that you have to understand is you have to tether their abilities really well. If you get too close to them, you're going to get annihilated with or without bone plating. So the way that I just played that against the Fizz's E is I managed to stay barely outside of Fizz's E range. And right here, I got hit by it. And you can see even through the bone plating, look at the damage that Fizz just did. So imagine if I don't have bone plating, he deals like 60 more damage. Like the amount of damage that these champs deal if they get onto you is insane. So keep that in mind. That you gotta tether well, and you gotta slowly chip away at these guys' HP bar. It's really important that you play for the small wins mindset, for the 100 for 0 type of trades, because if you can slowly get these guys lower by, for example, throwing your Qs every now and then, keeping at a nice distance, abusing their cooldowns. In this case, Fizz had no E, so because Fizz has no E, I'm fine using my E aggressively. Of course, that does mean that I have to be a little bit more careful. Very nice Q, denying, like hitting him onto the cannon. Once again, I got out his E right there, which means that if he uses his E, I'm fine using my E. I cannot really be using my E otherwise, because he's just going to dodge it with his own E. So we got a little bit of shenanigans going on, and I'm instantly coming back to mid lane. So we went for a little slow push into the Fizz, and because we took such good quality trades into the Fizz, what we can do right now is we can now finish this guy in the lane. We can go for the knockout right here by letting the wave come into me. And this guy has got Ignite. So what I can do is I can just consistently pressure him. Since he's got Ignite, every bit of damage that I deal to him is going to be sticking. So in this case, what I do is I let the wave come into me. I match the reset and I instantly start... oh, he actually took TP. Another guy took Ignite. It's okay. And I instantly... That's why I match the reset. I spend my gold, I get my items, and I instantly start pressuring this guy again. And it's going to be rinse and repeat, guys. Just try to time your abilities onto last hits. Really tether their damage properly. It's very important that you tether their damage properly. Beautiful E into Q. And as you can see, if I can start getting these guys a little bit lower, they're going to be slowly running into some trouble. Some anticipation also definitely comes into play. If you can be hitting your abilities like that consistently, these guys are going to be struggling. So beautiful play by the Nautilus. Very nice gank. And from this point, Fizz is going to like struggle. So I push in the wave. I reset. I sadly do not have Lost Chapter, but that's all right. So from this point in the lane, right, what we have to understand is that we don't really want to be giving Fizz roaming windows, because what happens is that Fizz wants to make stuff happen on the map. He wants to get kills, and he wants to like get snowballed in a way. So that's something we want to avoid. So it's really important that we understand how to use R in these type of lanes. We want to be using our ult to chunk the enemies, to put them under threat, so they cannot really trade on top of you, nor can they look for roams. The lower these guys are, the harder it is for them to roam. So look what I do. This guy actually goes for an E on top of my face onto the minion. So I just ult him straight up for the damage, because I know that he cannot dodge the damage right now anymore. So this is fantastic, because now he's lower. that's gonna make it's gonna make it much harder for him to find all-in windows on top of me, especially with me having bone plating up right now. I'm just so far ahead in the pressure department here in the lane that I can just take lane control, even though that the matchup is theoretically not that good for me. So I push in the wave. Fizz goes for a roam on top, but he's low. So it's not like he can do whatever he wants. I go for a little bit of a counter roam on bot. A lot of shenanigans going on. We're back in mid lane. This is really what we want to be showing. All the other macro stuff is not that important. We're mainly looking at the matchup here. And right now it's just rinse and repeat. I really want to get a reset real soon because I got my lost chapter, but I haven't really been able to find a reset. So it's very important that I actually chip away at this Fizz's HP bar, because if this guy is high HP, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. So I need to make sure that I land my abilities a little bit better, because he's going to be able to like, he does not feel any type of pressure from my point of view right now. So if he does not feel any type of pressure, he's kind of in the control. And you can see it right here. He goes for the R. Thankfully, what we see is that the R actually doesn't deal much damage, or at least the R deals some damage. But the thing is that he cannot really get onto me because I got bone plating. Without bone plating, I would have probably gone on one shot here, knowing how much damage that Fizz does. But since I've got bone plating, it actually scares him off, and I'm in a pretty good spot. Wastes a lot of his mana, and suddenly I'm in lane control again. So I take the reset, get the lost chapter, and now we're instantly back to base. And we're going to be rinse and repeating. The entire strategy still stands the same. We want to be trading onto this guy. Oh, wait, he just used his E? Fine. I'll just instantly nuke him with my ult. And look at how much damage I deal. Instantly popping both of his spots, putting a lot of pressure onto the Fizz right here. Unfortunately, I get Karthus ulted, which means that I'm in a lot of trouble, at least HP-wise. Thankfully, I'm actually able to still chip away at Fizz's HP bar. And with my flash is, if Fizz ever reaches an ult on top of you without bone plating, make sure that you flash his E. If you don't flash his E, he's going to probably be able to nuke you. So that's the strategy into these type of lanes. We're going to be showing the same concept, but we're going to go a little bit deeper with trading fundamentals in the next example versus an Ekko. So this one's going to be a little bit less general strategy and a little bit more specific details. Okay, what am I actually trying to do? What is my thought process in these type of matchups? So versus Ekko, what we have to understand is this is going to be a classic counter pick that people pick into Syndra. We definitely run bone plating because Ekko has about 9-second cooldowns on his abilities. And what's really important is that we deny him the opportunity to constantly trade onto you. Because if he can speed this lane up, he's going to be very annoying for us. And what's going to happen a lot is that this guy is going to try to E at you, and your E does not work against Ekko's E because he can blink over it. Ekko's second part of the E is a blink, and he can blink over your E, rendering your E completely useless. So you got to be very careful about that interaction, especially. That's also why this is a pretty good counter pick for Ekko. So most important, we have to understand that Ekko's looking to trade onto you. And if we can slowly chip away this guy's HP bar, it's going to be really hard for him to trade onto us. He does not have any sustain in his kit. He has pretty long cooldowns. So Ekko's trading patterns revolve all around his Q and his E. If he has one of them not up, he cannot trade onto you. He wants to combine these onto you. So what you have to understand is that we really are going to be playing the cooldown war, and we're really going to be looking to trade. So initially, right, I'm trying to skill check the Ekko. First Q in the lane, I'm kind of skill checking. I'm kind of seeing, okay, how's this guy's movement? How can we get along with it? And it seems like this first Q, he dodged it out pretty nicely. So right now, okay, I recognize, sure, I got to step up my game, no more skill checking. So what do I do right now is I time them nicely with the last hits. As you can see, Ekko goes for Qs onto the wave. I'm fine with that. We do not want to be standing inside of wave, because that's when we can instantly lose our bone plating. If we lose our bone plating and Ekko then find a trade onto us afterwards, worst case scenario, because we're going to be dropping a lot of HP. So make sure that you keep your bone plating up and don't stand inside of a wave so you get hit by both his Q and let the wave get hit by the Q. So Ekko can look to like use his Qs onto the wave. That's fine. Keep in mind, 9-second timer that we can abuse. So really nice against these melee champs is you can look for E into Q poke. In this case, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm trading my bone plating for an E into Q plus passive stack. And this is fine for me because I get a lot of damage on him as well. This guy has got no regeneration in his kit. I'm very happy with this. The only thing that I gotta be careful right now is just this one thing. And that is he will look to E, Q, out attack trading combo into me right now. So that's exactly what I'm looking to avoid. So look at my movement, look at my movement, look at his movement. This Ekko is looking to go onto me right now. He knows he got the bone plating, it's go time. But I sniff it out, and because I sniffed his trading combo out right here, beautiful, I don't get hit by the second part of his E. This grants me full lane control right now. If I would have gotten traded up on right there, he would have been able to proc his electrocute. I would have dropped about 250, 300 HP. I would have been fucked. Like, really fucked. So it's really good that I avoid his damage. Always keep that in mind. And look at that. Ekko just used his Q again. So what do? I walk up. I look for an E into Q, but he anticipates it. Very nice E on his behalf. And I'm constantly auto-attacking him as well. If I had Ahri right here, I would have done so much more damage to him. Ahri would have been so much better. So when he uses his W, be careful, because he gets a shield. If he gets a shield, we cannot really... we cannot really win trades into him, and he is free to trade onto it. So be careful when he uses his W. Look at that. A lot of Echoes will be doing this. This is great. If they use a Q like this, you should be smiling, because this is your 9-second window in which that he cannot trade onto you. So look what I do. He does that. I walk up. I look for a trade. W into Q. He now uses E. That means I got some more time to do whatever I want, knowing that he's got no cooldown. So I go for an E into Q. I unfortunately miss my Q, but it's still fine, because I get an insane amount of damage on top of him. And in this particular case, I almost kill him, but he's got some slick movement. We saw that level 1 when I tried to skill check him. He knows his stuff. So we reset right here, and this is so good for me, because what happens is that the wave state is actually in a position where he's losing more minions than I do. So we're very happy with this current wave state, and he needs to crash it eventually when he comes back here as well. So that's something that you're going to be seeing, is that he now needs to use his resources, his abilities to crash this wave. So once again, what we want to do right now, slow build into the Ekko. Be careful of his W. That's when he can win trades into you. And this is like a little bit of this funky interaction that you see with the E, right? I land the E, I stun him, but it still goes through. Luckily, I've got my bone plating right here, and we get ourselves a beautiful gank from the Lucian. And this is all set up by the proper wave set in advance, right? He's in a it was in a pretty tricky position with the wave state. We get a beautiful first blood, shove in the wave, we reset on Lost Chapter, go time right now. Let's take a look how we approach it from this point, because in reality, like the matchup is still the same. Ekko can still mess you up if you're not careful. So what I'm going to be doing, slow pushing, constantly slow push into these type of lanes, and then use the fact that you are slow building and have a mean advantage to pressure them onto their last hits. So let's see what Ekko does here. Ekko goes for a little bit of a W, so I want to CC him out of the W. But still, I gotta be careful. He still has his Q and his E. Those are his main trading tools. So that's something that I want to be constantly looking at to avoid. Look at that. Ekko just used his Q. Beautiful. He's level 6 right now, so he's got 3 points in his Q, which means that his Q cooldown is a little bit lower. Out of the top of my head, I think it's 8 seconds right now, because I think it goes down by half a second. If I'm wrong, bash me in the comments. Thank you very much. But anyways, that allows me to go for a little bit of a QE, because he does not have Q. But now he has Q back up, so I gotta be careful. Oh, nice, he uses Q again like that. Very easy for me to then just adapt and just start playing a little bit more aggressively. It's all about understanding the cooldowns right here. So we get a little bit of a gank. I get like stunned by Leona for like 8 seconds. For some reason, she stuns me for like a little bit, and then 2 seconds later she stuns me again. Let's take a look. Yeah, Leona stuns me just twice within 4 seconds. So I got so surprised. I'm like, holy moly, there's no way this guy just stunned me so often. But I lose my flash. It's not ideal, but we still are going to be rinse and repeating the same process. Slow building into Ekko. What we can do is we can harass him onto the casters right here. Nice W into E combo. Into Q on the back end. Sadly missed the Q, but that's okay. We can now have our Q upgrade, so right now we're in a position where we can just be... we're just rock and rolling, and we're really trying to still contest the Ekko onto the last hits. Ekko uses Q. From this point, usually Echoes will actually start perma pushing right here, which is fine for us, because we can then, if he uses his abilities onto the wave, we'll just use our abilities onto him and get lane pressure by that. So we don't really mind that. Just make sure that you abuse the cooldowns of these type of champions. These champions have usually a very clear indicators of cooldowns that you can play around. and that you should play around as well. If you don't, you're going to start struggling in these matchups. You really want to put the pressure on these matchups to alleviate the pressure from yourself. If you guys have any questions about these type of matchups, let me know. All right, so the next category of the matchups is going to be the offensive commit / Ahri matchups. And these are going to be the classic mage versus mage style of matchups. So there's going to be a lot to it in these type of matchups. This is like very skill-oriented matchups in general. We're going to be taking sorcery into precision. And the mindset is here, we're playing courageous, we're playing to win. The way that we're going to be doing that is we're going to be doing that by getting the wave prio, getting the push into the enemies. That's crucial in these type of matchups. If you're going to be on the receiving end of a slow push, especially in the early few waves, you're going to be struggling finding good trading windows onto them. So it's really important that you play for the early wave push. So what happens right here is I'm playing versus Ahri, and Ahri is disrespecting me by being AFK. And what happens is I get the initial Q plus the initial onto her plus onto the creeps. And this allows me already to get wave push. So she now wakes up right here. And already from this point, lane's over. It may sound crazy, but lane's over already. So let me elaborate you on how I win the lane from this point as Syndra into another mage matchup. So from this point, what we're going to do is we're going to constantly try to harass this guy onto her last hits. So I'm just hitting the minions right here, and I'm looking for trading windows in which that I can hit her when she's hitting a minion, while I do not have to last hit a minion. That's exactly what I'm looking to do. So in this case, you could be wondering, right, well, let's go a little bit back. In this case, you could be wondering, hey, but Tim, this minion is going to drop. Why are you not queuing her on that creep? It's a good question. Well, that's because my creep is also dropping low, so I cannot really harass her without getting overwhelmed and also losing my minion. So what I do is I decide to do it onto this creep right here. Beautiful Q, proccing her HP, and also with the specific rune page that I run, it's going to be dealing a lot of damage, especially into these type of champions. They don't have much sustain in their kit, so every Q, every ability counts. So this next one, she walks up too linearly. I get another Q onto her face. And you can really see that the slow build's now already putting some pressure onto her. She is trying to out-attack the mini wave in a position where I do not have to think about anything but her. So she missteps. I land another beautiful Q. I now have level 2. So what do? Beautiful out-attack into E into Q. And this is all possible because of good ability usage, knowing what to look for, and having, of course, the wave in the right position. And this Ahri, right now, it goes the other way as well. Like these control mages should also be using her abilities while you are last hitting. So if you look at this particular situation, the reason why I'm able to dodge that is because I just last hit a creep. But now there's nothing for me to walk up for because these two creeps are still very high HP. So I see this ability from the Ahri and I quickly step it back. And if you can play for the small wins in these type of matchups with the slow builds, right, you're going to be like completely annihilating these guys. Like just as this Ahri right here, she's last hitting this creep, boom, QE gets annihilated. And we're now at the point where she's fully lost lane. Like lane is fully over for her here. So I'm continuously slow building into the Ahri right here, getting the level 3. Once again, trying to punish her onto last hits. And I fuck up my abilities right here. The idea was good, but I just messed it up. I just stuffed it up. I thought I wanted to QE her here onto this creep, but my Q just got barely on cooldown. And it didn't proc before my E, so I kind of wasted my abilities. It is what it is. Happens sometimes. We're still in such a lead versus this Ahri that we're chilling really hard. And when you're in this amount of HP advantage, it's okay to do a little bit more heavy trading. It's okay to get hit by her stuff as well, because what happens is your HP is less valuable to you than it is to her because she's already so low and she got no pots anymore. So look at the wave step right now. I went for a continuously slow build, and now the wave is actually very slowly pushing back into me, which is fantastic because she wants to reset. She needs to reset, otherwise she becomes a kill threat. So I can actually use this wave state to deny her more minions, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Is as well, I'm canceling a reset, even lengthening the time that she's going to be losing minions. Look at all the minions that are dying on her side right here. This is all experience and gold that she's losing. This is fantastic. So there's two options right now when it comes to the reset. Either, number one, I can instantly reset right now, TP back, match her tempo, instantly start pressuring her again. Or number two, which is the thing that I'm going for. This is like a little bit of the Chovy resets thing is where you extend your reset a little bit. You extend your lane. You try to get maximum value out of every bit of resources that you still have available. I still got a lot of mana, a lot of health, a potion left, so I can actually stay and still look for trades. So the mindset is good. The only problem right here is that I start messing up my abilities. I start mistiming it with last hits, which is of course really, really bad. And then I don't really get much value from the initial strategy that I'm going into. I think as well, I should have just started slow pushing again instead of like whenever she TPs back, I should start slow pushing again instead of letting it come into me. That would have like solved the situation and made trading onto the Ahri also a lot easier. But because of that, she kind of gets prio. She forces me to hover down towards the play because I don't want Ahri to impact that. And I just take a really nasty trade purely because I didn't manage the wave and use my abilities properly. I'm now on the back foot. I now have to reset, unfortunately. But it's still okay. I'm still in a good position. It's just a small missed opportunity. So right now, we just start rinse and repeating because we want to extend this lane into Ahri. Ahri just used a lot of resources right here. She's no mana. And that means that I want to cancel her reset right now. Because if she can get the reset off, she can get to base. She's going to replenish her resources. So I'm looking for the Ahri right now. And guess who I found? I found the Ahri behind the ledge. And this is where it's over for her. She's got no TP. And look at the resource difference, right? So she gets emotional, flashes on my head, setting up for the Kha'Zix gank. I've got a beautiful E onto the Kha'Zix, denying him the possibility of ever killing me right here. And because Ahri just flashed on top of me, she's gonna die towards the Shaco gank. So I push in the wave, I reset, and now we come back. And now it's just general lane fundamentals again. We want to start slow building into the Ahri again and look for trades whenever she steps up and is looking for a last hit. In this case, she stood in my E, into my E direction. So I am, of course, happy to go for that punish. So as we can see, I'm slow building a wave into the Ahri right here. Ahri goes for a little bit of a roam on bot. She dies. She's not in a happy spot. She's very emotional at this current state. So I'm just really happy just now continuously pressuring this Ahri. So beautiful QE. Sadly, don't let the Q land the Q, but that's all right. And I'm in such a position right now where there's just basically no losing. We're almost moving into like the later part of the lane. But that's something that we're going to be covering in different examples. Just to show a little bit more versus the Ahri right here, right? I got my lost chapter right now. I'm very strong. I'm so strong to the point where if this guy disrespects me and tries to walk into me, I can just one-shot her with my combos. We've shown this example in one of the ability use examples as well. This is what Syndra is capable of doing. Let's jump straight into the next example. So this is going to be an example versus Lux. And versus Lux, it's the same principle. What we want to do is we want to try to get the minion push into her. And one way that we can do that as well versus Lux is Lux has a very high AoE, a large AoE ability. So what's very important is that we stand outside of the wave versus a Lux, because otherwise she's going to be able to AoE us and the wave. So we're going to be trying to get the minion push, stand outside of the minion wave, dodge out on her spells, and then try to punish her onto some last hits right here. So I think I could have done a little bit better job here, but this is overall still a very good queue. I did take First Strike because this is a little bit of an older game. I would take Ahri or Comet in the current meta right here. So trying to keep the lane push into Lux, out-attacking the minion waves as much as possible so I can keep my slow push into her. It's really important that you keep the slow push and swap up some of your movement. That was a really good swap up of my movement. And I abused my level 2 advantage beautifully right here, getting a nice chunk onto Lux. And yeah, we're really just trying to pressure this guy by the wave state mainly. And of course, it's inevitable to get hit by some of their spells. But as long as you keep the wave in a good position, you stand outside of the minion wave, you're going to be in a pretty okay spot in general. So continuing, right? We keep the slow build going. Once again, we get hit by a Lux QE. That is sometimes going to be inevitable. And we're consistently trying to proc our passive stacks onto Lux, play in rotation of 2, and slow build into them to make them focus on the minions rather than make them focus on you. So really nice ability usage right here, pressuring the Lux while she is forced to CS in the tower. Beautiful Q, and I'm happy trading some out attacks here as well. But overall, what we're seeing is that we are continuously slow pushing into the Lux right here and pressuring her through that. She's already out of potions. We do want to be crashing the wave every once in a while, so we can let the next wave come back to neutral. So with neutral, we can use the longer lane again to start pressuring the Lux a little bit more. And keep in mind that if you are in a neutral wave state, and then slow push from there, that's when you get the most amount of trading windows. If you're constantly pushing under the enemy tower, it's going to be very hard for you to trade into them. So really abusing Lux, her lack of cooldowns, and especially because she started pushing this wave while so low on health, it's going to be very hard for her to continue laning. So I matched the reset in this specific case. And a lot of people may be wondering, Tim, you're matching resets so often. Why are you doing that? Well, that's only because I'm trying to pressure these guys. Of course, you can also stay and slow the lane down and play for Lost Chapter plus Q upgrade. You can do that. But with the current identity of Syndra, you're actually allowed to play a little bit faster. You're actually allowed to match these guys' resets and try to pressure them a little bit more. Because Syndra is actually a really good laner. And as long as you use your lane fundamentals well, you're going to be in a great position regardless. So right now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using this wave state right here to put pressure onto Lux. So the wave is now slow pushing into me, but it's pushing very slowly into me to the point in which that I can just use the wave states when she needs the last hit to actually punish her onto these last hits. And I don't want to like get perma shoved in all the time. I just want to make sure that I keep a nice balance of slow builds, because slow builds are going to be fantastic for us to harass onto the Lux. So we got a Lost Chapter gold, we reset for Lost Chapter, we come back, and right now we're going to be looking to land even more trades. Against these longer range champions, what you're going to see is that sometimes they will not give you your initial Q range. They will be standing outside of this initial Q range. And in that case, we have to be looking for QE into W trades to get our passive rolling. We won't always be perfectly getting our passive with QEs or WQs. Of course, that should be our aim. As you can see, this is one of my older Syndra games. It's like, it's also with the, yeah, it's like really old actually. It shows a good example still, but it's really old. And I can, whenever I look at my Syndra gameplay right here, I'm pretty disgusted. I'm gonna be honest. I'm just gonna be really brutally honest with you guys. It's not as good as it is right now. That's also why we're redoing the guide, by the way, because I'm just much better on the champ. It shows a good example of like the general strategy of what to do in these type of matchups, though. You constantly want to be slow building, harassing them onto their last hits, pressuring them on the slow build, standing outside of the minion wave, and then yeah, really try to put the pressure onto these guys, because you are a strong laner as Syndra. You will be able to win versus them. Let's move on to the next example. So in this example, we're going to be playing versus Hwei, and I'm really going to share to you guys my thought process in my ability usage and why I make the decisions I do. And we're going to go a little bit more in depth so you guys can learn from it. So initially, we get a little bit of a shenanigans early. I predict the enemy bot lane to cheese my bot lane, so I'm hovering them. And that really allows us to win this, this altercation right here. And I get a nice first blood. Beautiful. Very nice. I move a little bit late to mid, and I think I lose... I lose 3 melee creeps. So I'm slightly behind versus the Hwei in the isolated experience, but that's okay. What I'm specifically looking to do is I'm looking to, right now, try to control the wave state. He's got the push into me, which he forced, of course. And I'm trying to control the wave state, trying to control the damage. And really, when he still needs the last hit, right, because that still happens in a situation like this, I can still look for these Qs on top of him, because my Q is such long range. And I can do it in a position where I don't really put myself in a vulnerable state. So I go for these creeps in the tower. I'm forced to take a little bit of damage. He also has very nice ability usage onto me last hitting. So props to him. Very nice job. And right now, we can start slow building again. So this is a spot where, because he got the crash on the first two, I can now start slow building a little bit into him. So I'm going to be looking for these W into Q combos. And soon I'm also going to be getting the E upgrade, which is also going to be very, very useful. I ping off this early aggression because I personally cannot move. If Lisa wants to 1v1 Viego, fine, that's up to him. But I am first getting my wave out. I don't want to miss a single creep. So what happens right here is that we actually get Hwei's flash, which is fantastic. And I'm just going back to the wave, which is great for me. I didn't miss many minions at all, so I'm in a very happy position. Hwei is now forced to TP back, so I can look for beautiful QE onto under the turret right here. I'm going to be giving you guys a little bit of a small tip. If you want to look for QE, try to do it on the top side of the lane, because this is where you can get the closest to the turret without taking turret aggro, so to say. If I do that right here, right, it's really hard to get close to him and then still walk out. I don't think I'll be able to get in range. Because there's so much room here, I'm able to do it right here. There's much less room here. So there, try to do it here on the top side of the lane. Continuing. So he just took a reset. I still got my 2 potions. And I'm close to Lost Chapter. So I want to chill. I want to slow this lane down a little bit while still looking to trade onto him. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to still try to look to trade onto the Hwei, but I'm still looking to slow the lane down enough so I can get to my Lost Chapter plus refillable potion if I need the potion. So beautiful, beautiful QE onto this minion. He needs to last hit and out-attack this minion, so I QE him onto this creep, dealing an insane amount of damage. Really nice job. He levels up. Of course, he still is fine in the XP department. And right here, I go for Q because I spot linear movement right here. So we gotta abuse the linear movement, guys. Whenever they're making mistakes, you gotta abuse it. So the wave is now slow pushing into me, which I'm happy with because that allows me to eventually let it crash. And that is a way to slow down the lane state without giving him too many opportunities. So I'm really happy with the current wave state, just looking to last it. And if he ever makes a mistake, I am, of course, happy to capitalize on it and use my abilities onto him. Now, lucky me, this is the first time in like games that my jungle actually plays around mid. He sees a gank opportunity because of the wave state, purely coincidentally. And this is fantastic because Hwei has got no flash. So we can abuse this wave state that I set up for it, which wasn't really intentional, to actually get a nice gank going onto this Hwei. So I set it up with my QE, beautiful stuff, into another kill onto the Hwei. And we have a fantastic wave state right here. I'm just going for the reset, getting Lost Chapter, getting boots, and we are in a fantastic position right here. We are in a game-winning position given this point. So my goal right now is, because I'm so far ahead of the Hwei, is to pressure this guy whenever he walks up. So right now I'm happy skill checking a little bit more because I'm so far ahead of him that I don't have to play through the books anymore. I can just start skill checking because I'm so far ahead that I don't have much to lose. So every single ability that I land on top of him is going to be very, very valuable. And you see that he's forced to step up super aggressively to the wave. And he's just getting hit by every ability. And I'm just completely like dominating him in this regard. Because he's forced to step up to the wave, and because I'm so much stronger than him, I'm able to just completely landing every single ability. And from this point, it's just end of review for him, by the way. His game is completely over. It's completely done. So I quickly want to reiterate, like, how do I use my abilities right here in this particular case? What am I looking for? Well, he's trying to get into range. Hwei's trying to get into out-attack range for these creeps so he can crash this wave. He needs to crash this wave. So what I do is I make him fight for his space. So for every bit of space that he tries to get back into the lane, I, in this case, throw a QE into W, proccing my passive. Beautiful stuff. Now I give him the space because I don't have any ability to contest him anymore. But I just get my Q, and look at that. He needs to last hit this creep, so I'm happy queuing him onto it. He tries to juke it out as well, but he just gets hit by it. Now I need to wait for my cooldowns again. I stand back, I make sure I don't get hit by anything. Okay, got my cooldowns again. W into QE. W is very low risk, high reward, because the W slows. If I land it, I can instantly QE him afterwards. If I don't land the W, it's fine. I can still look to QE him onto a next creep. So another beautiful Q right here. This one was a little bit more skill checky. He's forced to stand into the range of the creeps right here. And to out-attack and try to crash the wave. The wave state's really bad for him. And I abuse that with beautiful ability usage. Nice W flash, guys. W flashing is a thing. It's really hard to dodge. We get a beautiful kill and a review. So there's a few more things that are, I think, good to notice and that I want to like point out when it comes to my positioning in the lane. You want to position yourself in a position versus Hwei that he cannot like land his QQ onto you through the minions or like next to the minions, but he can also not QE into EEU and try to hit the wave plus you. So a very specific interaction shows right here is look what he's doing. He's QEing the wave. He needs to crash the wave. So if I'm standing inside of the wave right now, I'm going to get hit by his abilities. but I stand just far enough outside of the minions that he cannot hit me with his QE into EE, and I can actually hit him with my own abilities. That's also what allows me to get these good quality trades and wins the matchup. Next category of matchups is going to be the defensive area or combat matchups. The reason why these are defensive matchups is because you have to use your E reactively in these matchups. You're not allowed to use your E proactively unless you get safety from your support or your jungle or your tower, because these champions will get on top of your face. These champs will annihilate you if they get the chance because of their dashes. So this is going to be a classic matchup for the rest. It's also these matchups you don't want to push them in, because if you allow them to play on the long lane, you give them opportunities to get on top of your face. The most important thing in these type of matchups is that you don't want to allow them to get on top of your face. You want to keep your distance with your Q, never get into auto attack range. And therefore also we want to let them push into us in the early game and try to just queue onto last hits. In this case, I did a beautiful job queuing on last hits, because the lower these champions are, the harder it is for them to get on top of your face. Once again, that's constantly what we're looking to get. We're just avoiding them getting on top of our face. Stay healthy, so you're always out of kill range. So we do a pretty good job CSing in the tower right here. And there's going to be times where the wave is then going to be slow pushing into the enemies. And the wave will eventually get to their side. That's fine. As long as you slow push and you play for the crash, which Syndra is really good at because she's got a lot of AoE wave clearing tools, we're in a great position. So right here, I get a beautiful QE onto the Akshan. And the lower this Akshan gets, the easier it is for me to pressure him in the lane. As you can see right now, I use this slow build and I use my aggressive positioning to actually zone him off attacking the minions. Because I got so many good Qs and good trades beforehand, I'm able to pressure him like this. A little bit bad ability usage. This is disgusting, guys. Like, I don't want to just sugarcoat it. This is just really bad. This E really allows him to find a possibility of where he can now find a Q on top of me and then get on top of my face. So it's a really bad E. I don't get punished for it in this game, but there's going to be times where you will get punished for it. So I want to crash this wave. It's really important to crash this wave, because crashing this wave will make the next wave bounce back into you. And once again, we can then stay outside of the range of their auto attacks and just start chipping away at their HP bar. Every little bit of damage, every single Q, from both sides, by the way, counts. So we're going to be continuing right here. Akshan's forced to use his potion. We still got 2 potions. We're happy speeding this lane up a little bit if we can get good trades. But we're also happy slowing it down a little bit and just play for the lost chapter. So we get some beautiful trades right here. And I kind of want to extend the lane. I don't want him to reset right now. He's got Ignite. So what I do is I actually forcefully tank the wave and basically allow him to damage me. Because by doing this, what happens is, especially with my Bard being in the area, I'm actually forcing him to stay in lane a little bit longer because the wave state is not good. So I'm able to shove in the next wave. If I had 1200 gold, I would reset for Lost Chapter here. But since I don't have 1200 gold yet, I'm actually staying. And I'm trying to put a little bit more pressure onto Akshan. So then you may be wondering, Tim, you just talked about reactive E matchups. What was this? Well, the only reason I do is because my Bard is hovering me. Otherwise, this would never work. So because Bard's hovering, we actually bait out the Akshan E, because this is what Akshans will do, right? So whenever you use your self-beating ability in your E, the Akshans will get on top of your face like this, and they will be able to kill you if you got no support or no one to help you out. So I reset, Lost Chapter, refill. We're in a great spot right now, also given the fact that we've taken such good trades. So now it's just going to be a little bit of a rinse and repeat into the Akshan. We want to be taking good quality trades. I'm expecting him to show up just before the cannon. I sadly missed my QE. That means that right now I need to back off. I need to be very careful if I use my E aggressively like this, because he's going to be able to like find an angle on top of me. The benefit is that I'm level 5 to his level 6 to his level 5, so that's going to make him a little bit scared. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure he would have just tried to E on top of me here. Really important, mute your teammates, guys. And we get another nice Q into E, but I'm really taking my distance. I'm really respecting the Akshan, knowing when it's a timer of his. And we see a little bit of a roam. I'm very happy just going for like a little bit of damage on top of him here. Because every bit of damage that I get on top of him is going to be really hard for him to regenerate and to basically get back. So he just took a reset, and right now we're just going to be instantly pressuring him with my ability usage again. I got my Q upgraded level 7. We are in a fantastic position right here, and we're constantly going to be trying to pressure him onto his last hits. So beautiful Q right there, hitting the Akshan as well. Beautiful QE, getting the passive stack. And especially what you see, right, is whenever you got the Lost Chapter plus your passive, you're not really going to be running We're mainly playing for 10 CS per minute in these type of matchups. We get a little bit of an early skirmish, don't really want to be focusing too much on that. And because I'm just out CSing and slowly outpacing the Akshan here in this lane, he's in a lot of trouble. And the main reason why I'm out CSing him by so much is because I'm timing my abilities with his last hits, putting pressure onto him, which makes it hard for him to go for every single last hit. That's the mindset that I want you guys to adopt in these situations. So you can see how aggressive my posturing is here as well, really denying him this cannon. I'm happy taking a little bit of HP if I can deny the cannon of him. And I'm really dodging out on these jungle ganks because of how good my vision is in the meantime as well. And if you can slow this lane down, make sure you don't get solo killed. You will outskill these champions. At this point, if we tap right here, like lane's done. Lane is completely over. I got my Ludens. This guy got Mercs. And this is really far behind, let's be honest here. We got our first completed item. He's still in the boots. Even though Mercs is super broken, it's still not enough. Because of how much stronger that I just generally am than this champion. And I can just constantly outrange him and poke him down. So this example, we're going to be playing versus Lucian. And this is NISQY's Lucian. So for the people that don't know, it's a pro player, plays in the LEC. And this is not a lane that I played perfectly. I made a lot of mistakes in this lane. I did some good stuff as well, but we're mainly just going to be reviewing the lane, seeing what kind of good stuff I did, and seeing also what things I could have done better for the next time. So initially, my strategy is to just let him push into me early, because I don't want to allow him to start out-attacking me on the long lane. So timing my abilities, also an out-attack right here with his last hits is going to be key. I could do a little bit better job standing outside of the... standing a little bit further outside of the minions, so he cannot chip me with those Qs. I get a beautiful lane-winning gank by my Nidalee. Shout out to my Nidalee, thank you very much. I wouldn't have won the lane without you. And what we're just going to be doing is we're just going to be chipping away at Lucian's SP bar, especially right now because he took so much damage. He's just going to be very vulnerable to poke. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Stay outside of his out-attack range and slowly chip away at his HP bar. So very nice Q usage there as well. Chipping away at this guy's HP. The more chip I get, the better it is. Beautiful QE, trying to time it onto a last hit. People say, is there a kill opportunity right there? I don't think there is because of the fact that he's got a cookie and I don't have Ahri. And therefore my out-attack still fuck all damage. So, yeah, I'm just really trying to chip away this guy's HP bar. Seems like he opted in for a tempo reset. And because I farmed like ass, I cannot buy a normal item. So I have to just do it with a refillable potion. And that actually, because he farmed so much better, puts him in an advantageous position in this lane. So he did a pretty good job by crashing that minion wave. And now he's actually in the lead, even though he did soak up my Nidalee gank. So very nice gameplay by him. And what we're going to be doing right now is just rinse and repeat. Slowly get pushed in. Really make sure that I stand outside of the minion wave right now. I do a little bit better job right here. Dodging out on his Qs. I did take a lot of damage before that. And just trying to look for these good abilities ourselves. So I use my E aggressively right here, which is dangerous. It's possible, but it's dangerous. Because what happens is because I use my E aggressively right here, he can basically E on top of me anytime he wants. And I got to be very careful and take my distance, because this is what happens if I don't do that. I just get traded upon and I lose a lot of HP. So right now, because he did use his abilities forward, I can try to pressure him onto these last hits right here. That's what I'm trying to do. Pressure him, because now it's my window to play. I rush my W, really bad W, but thankfully I do land my Q. So that's something at least. And right here, he gets really close to me, so I'll go for a nice, beautiful E into Q. Whenever these melee champs get too close to you, don't even bother QEing, just E into Q. You don't have to stun them. They can't out-attack you anyway after the E, because of the fact that they're just pushed back so far. So this is a beautiful, beautiful W into Q. Really max range right here, using my range advantage. And yeah, the main thing that we're just seeing right here is that as long as we stand outside of his range and we don't really get chunked by him, we're actually in an okay position, right? That's really what I want you guys to understand. Use your abilities to poke him down. Make sure that you stay healthy in the meantime. So I do have some pretty decent ability usage right here. Really chipping him at max range a lot. So I'm doing a fantastic job like that. But you see that if the enemy AD mid plays it well, it's hard to like consistently beat him. This guy is actually playing it pretty well. So nearly ganks me again, like complete jungle gap here, let's be honest. And yeah, that allows me to now take control of the wave, get a beautiful reset onto the lucidity boots, and now we're actually in a position where it's just pretty hard for the Lucian to play, mainly because I've got so much jungle attention that yeah, it just helped me through the hardest part of the lane. Because now I got a little bit lower cooldowns. I can therefore have my E up time like a little bit more often, so it's going to be harder for him to constantly dash onto me. And you can see he gets a little bit tilted. He gets some linear movement. I think he stopped playing a little bit serious. I think he got a little bit tilted right here because it's unacceptable the way he's like positioning and getting hit by my abilities right there. So I'll have more abilities, and now we just are happy just chipping away more at his HP bar. Slow building once again. Beautiful Q. Every Q that I land right there is just going to go a long way. So that's constantly what I'm aiming to do as well. And I'm also happy just holding my E. So what he's looking for right here, he's looking to dodge my QE with his own E. But what I'm doing is I'm going for an out attack first into an EQ, which makes it impossible for him to dodge because of the fact that I swap up my ability usage and I use it reactively rather than proactively. So that was really good ability usage by me, catching him a little bit off guard, showing that champion mastery is very, very important. So in this position, we get another gank by the Nidalee. I go for an R into E. A little bit miscommunication with me and the Nidalee, which turns into a bit of a shit fest. To be honest, I do miss every ability. And so does Nidalee. So yeah, eventually what happens is I think we trade like we trade 2 for 1. So it was a really nice outplay by Lucian. So we come back into the lane, and right now he's got the Mercs. So Mercs is pretty tough for me to deal with because it helps him a lot with his with staying healthy and keeping sustain high. So I should still just stand outside of his range, and my goal really is to once again use my max range, chip away at his HP, and really make sure that I stay healthy in the meantime, because I don't want to get chunked by him. Some really nice spacing right here. Beautiful spacing on the max range of my Q, and getting a nice little bit of chunk onto the Lucian. And I'm just trying to chip away at his HP bar. And if he ever messes up, I do have quite a bit of kill threat with my R in general. So that's something that I'm actually trying to get going into him. So consistently still looking for Qs, chipping away his HP bar, putting the pressure onto him. And yeah, as you can see, he will get the priority if he out-attacks the minion wave a lot, right? A good Lucian will get the priority. But it's our job to like skill up right here. Because there's going to be a certain part of the game where he is actually not going to be able to win anymore, because we just get too much damage. And if he gets hit by an ability too much, he's just going to be getting chunked too hard. So I reset right here. And right now I'm in a position where I got my lost chapter. I cancel his reset, and right now he's in a lot of trouble. So he still goes for the reset, TP's back. Beautiful little combo right here, making it undodgeable into another Q. And right now, I'm in full lane control. So this is the point where these matchups really start to change. I got my lost chapter, I got enough mana, I've got the level 9, so my Q deals a lot of damage. So if he messes up like what he's doing right here, he's just going really deep. He's trading a lot with me, using his R. But since he also lost a little bit of HP, it's not like necessarily too good for him. I still got my R. He just used his R. So I can now yeah, look for like good ability usage into him. And if he ever makes a mistake of going too deep, like he's doing right here, and not on his terms, I can just punish him for it and really try to tether out his out attack range, playing on my own range. And in this case, we do a fantastic job poking him down. And this is really where you see that he's getting a little bit emotional, because he's just getting really close to me. And he could have gotten out right here, but because he's being very disrespectful, I actually solo kill him here. From this point, lane's over. Like if you die to a Syndra like once or twice, and the Syndra gets her items, and you get behind in the lane's going to be an absolute horror because Syndra is really good at snowballing. I got my Ludens right here. From this point, it's just a horror for him in the lane. If you guys have any questions about these matchups, let me know. So I'm going to walk you through step by step how to snowball a lane on Syndra and how to translate your lead into different parts on the map. I'm also going to be showing an example with this. So whenever we hit our Q upgrade and our Lost Chapter spike, which is basically our first reference point, our mindset towards our abilities and our trading shifts. We're not really going to be playing around the 2 ability rotation anymore. We're now just trying to play for lane control. So just instead of taking trades to stack up our passive, we're now just taking trades to put pressure onto the enemy. And if we can take control over the waves and take control over the trades, we will get lane control. Step number 1 is get lane control by trading well and by managing your waves well. Then we want to start controlling one side of the map, depending on which is your strong side or the side that you want to be playing on. And you want to start warding and leaning. And this is usually the strong side, the side of your jungle. Then we want to be calling for neutral objectives and be the first one to move. Syndra wants to be first. So push your wave, be first. Push your wave, hover down or hover up, be first. And then when you're first, you can control choke points. You can control the Fog of War to make it hard for the enemies to enter and maybe nuke them with one of your abilities. That's going to be the way to snowball on Syndra. Of course, I'll show you an example of how to do it in-game as well. But finally, Tim's top tip. This is very important. If you want to control one side of the map, one tip that I have is use a contour ward in that side of the lane bush and use a yellow ward a little bit deeper on the same side, so you have full control of that side. You know that the enemies don't have vision in that lane bush as well, and you can just constantly shove, move by pressuring into the Fog of War, and the enemies don't know what you're doing, so that gives you full control. Let's take a look at an example. So in this example, we're going to be landing against the Gragas mid, and we're going to be getting our first solo kill onto him. We just got our Q upgrade, so what do? We look for QE, WQR combo into the Gragas, and we nicely one-shot him. Beautiful kill threat. This puts us in an advantageous position here in the lane. And we're going to be snowballing this. So what do? I look for a reset, and I get myself hashtag alternator plus a control ward. And this control ward is going to be super important because I'm playing versus a Nuno, and a Nuno has a lot of gank threat onto me. So what I'm going to be doing specifically is I'm going to be getting the wave push, taking control of the waves right here, control warding one side of the map. In this case, I want to be playing to bot side because that's where the next objective's at. My Eve is clearing towards bot side. The next dragon is going to be on bot side. So I want to be playing and therefore also putting my vision on bot side right now. So I sadly do not have a yellow ward. Otherwise, I would have put that yellow ward. Let me show you guys. Otherwise, I would have put that yellow ward right here, which would then give me so much control on bot side that I can just literally stand right here in the lane. And I know I will never get ganked from that angle. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I just got control of the lane by pushing in the wave. Then I place the ward. And right now I'm going to be taking control of the lane and the trades again. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm pushing in the wave right here. And instantly what my initial response is I need to move to first to display. I got lane control. I'm the first to move. Gragas is slow. He needs to still be answering the wave. So this is a good play for me. So what do? I actually decide to stay in the Fog of War right here. And I look to chunk and nuke the Gragas. Is this the best play? Hard to say. Another play is that you actually want to move towards your team and impact them right there. I get a little bit greedy. I think I should have actually went down towards the dragon and played for the dragon together with my team. Created a temporary man advantage. But this is also another thing that you can do, is you can sit in the Fog of War and land your abilities for free onto the enemies. It's a different choice. And in this case, it didn't really matter because we didn't really get punished for it. But like, it's okay. It's not necessarily there's a bad and a good choice, right? Both are options. So I land a nice ability onto the Gragas. I cannot really kill him, so I just keep pushing. I get control of the push. I take my item. I reset. I once again try to get wave control here first. And then when taking wave control by pushing the wave right here, what do? Is I recognize, okay, next objective, Grubs. Seems like my Eve's going there. My Maokai's going there. So what do? I also hover for the Grubs right here. Once again, I try to take control here by taking good quality trades and taking control of the waves, getting a nice E onto the Gragas into WQ, really chunking him out. Beautiful Q on the back end as well. We spot Nunu top, so we're not really in any kind of vulnerability. And this, yeah, so I think I get a little bit too close to the Gragas and his abilities, but that's okay. You just use this R. And because I got still full control of the trades and full control of the waves, I can just lean towards the side of my jungle, and we can guarantee us the grips right here. So fantastic rotation right here. That's really it, guys. Right? That's how you snowball. You take good quality trades. You take control of the waves. You make sure that you're the first one to moves. That moves. You can use a controller in one of these side lane bushes to guarantee you full control of that side of the map. That's then where you want to be leaning. That's the side that you want to be playing on. And that's how you're going to be able to snowball the wave push and the trades advantage that you have in your mid lane towards all the sides of the map. You could theoretically also go for like roams and stuff like that, but objectives is just so easy to secure if you have mid push. If you're winning mid, your goal should be to translate that into objectives by being first, because you got so much wave control usually on mid lane. If you guys have any questions about this, let me know. Moving on to Syndra's mid game. Syndra's mid game isn't overly complex as long as we know what we're supposed to be doing. So first of all, Syndra wins games by being first at plays and letting the enemies come towards her. It's really important that you are rather proactive rather than reactive on Syndra. And the mid game revolves around a few key points. Number one is we need to be using our lull states well to identify if we can contest the next objective. It's very simple. If you can contest it, make sure that you're there. Make sure that you're there on time, that you're being first. If you cannot contest it, don't play it. Don't try to run into the enemies because then you're not first. If you cannot win the fight, try to play for the opposite side. Farming up and hitting our item spikes. It's really important that we just get the creeps in general. We need to be shoving waves to hit our item spikes. We want to get rich. We skill really well. So tying this together with the previous point that we talked about, being first at objectives, we're really good at shove and moving. Shove and moving is going to be our classic way of approaching the mid game in Syndra. Make sure that you shove out waves first, then move. Play on your timers. Play on the times that you want to make a play. And ideally, we sync that up with objective timers. Then, whenever we are like positioning right on the map, we want to then start looking for picks with E. We want to be playing on our timers, and we want to be looking for picks with E, catching enemies off guard, and basically trying to one-shot them. Syndra is really good at looking for picks with E, especially if they're walking into choke points into us. That makes it really easy to land E because you got the vision advantage, you got the positional advantage, and using the terrain, it's almost impossible to dodge your E's if you're using it from the right direction. So looking for picks with E is going to be crucial in the mid game. And then finally, staying alive is also very important. We're classic control mage, we're vulnerable, right? And if we die, what's going to happen is that we're going to lose tempo. And losing tempo on a control mage is bad in many different aspects. Number one is you're going to be off the map, so you're not going to be able to get any farm. And therefore, you're not going to be able to reach your item spikes. Another reason why dying is so bad on a control mage is because we lose the possibility to shove and move. Usually, we're going to be late to plays. We're going to lose control of plays. And then instead of letting the enemies come into us, we're usually the ones into them, running into them. And that's a quick way to lose the game. A final thing before we jump into the examples is never give up when you're playing Syndra. Even if you're behind, it's okay on Syndra because if you can skill up, hit your item spikes, a single E can win you the game. Just one E can change the game. If you hit the right carry, if you nuke them with the rest of your team or just with your ult, you may just win the game on the spot just by a single E. Let's jump into the examples. So for this first mid-game example, let's break the situation down. We're playing Syndra versus Hwei. We're overall in a pretty good spot this game. I'm pretty ahead of the Hwei. Hwei is really far behind. I'm getting close to my Rabadon spike. We see that top lane is doing pretty well as well. Slightly ahead of the Vladimir, but Vladimir is definitely not weak since he's farming better. Bot lane, slight lead on bot lane as well. We're doing pretty good. Actually, pretty big lead on bot lane now that I see. Bot lane is doing fantastic. And jungle, slightly behind. Viego has got a lot of kills and is very strong. So this is going to be a classic situation, guys. This is a situation where you guys are going to be in a lot as well. You're slightly ahead, and right now the goal is to basically translate this small lead into victory. So what are we looking to do is, first of all, first thing that are constantly on my mind is what's the next objective? What's the next objective? That's the first thing that I'm asking myself because that's what I want to be playing for. Enemy Viego is dead in this specific instance. So knowing that the enemy Viego is dead, we should be able to take control of mid wave, get priority, and then play on to the next objective. So we've got a NISQY, beautiful NISQY engaged right here into the minion wave. Personally, I'm going to be honest, I didn't even spot my own NISQY, so let alone the enemy spotting the NISQY. But this is fantastic, right? Because this pick onto the Misfortune means that we get the mid prio. We also have the Herald onto the mid prio. So that guarantees his objective. And look at this situation, right? We are first in the area. That's why it's good to contest this objective. We're playing fully in our advantage right here, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So first thing that we instantly do, right? Objective is gone. What's the next thing that crosses my mind in this instance? Okay, MF is dead. What do we see? What's the next objective? Oh, Nash is the next objective. It's going to be top side. Okay. I also see that I am 500 gold of my Rabadon. So there's a few big things going on here. But since the next objective is top side, what I want to do is I want to start playing and setting up for this objective. That's going to be the goal. So we push in mid and we take top side control right here. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm trying to be first and force the enemies to walk into me. In this case, the Rel does that. And I chunk her out a little bit. She runs Warmog, so it's not really a chunk that sticks, unfortunately, but it is what it is. And what we have to, what I'm specifically aiming to do right now is I'm trying to keep this control and make it hard for the enemies to like get this control back. The main reason why that's the case is because I cannot go and push top, because top lane wave is already in a position that I cannot really push it in. If the top lane wave would be next to my tower, I push that in first, and then I rinse and repeat the progress. But since top lane wave is not really pushable, right, I'm just hovering around mid, trying to get the mid control and keep the control of this objective, and make it hard for Rel to walk in by controlling these choke points. As you can see, I shouldn't have ulted her, but I did a pretty decent amount of damage towards the Rel. In that case, also, I'm going to be hovering mid, keeping the mid pressure, keeping the mid control, and then we just eventually start the objective because the enemy team, we want to bait the enemy team into us. We want to play onto the choke points and bait the enemy team into us. So we get a pick onto the we get a pick onto the enemy Misfortune, onto the enemy Viego. I jump back in and we get a pick onto the Rel as well. So this is fantastic because this will actually allow us to get the Baron. We set up the control, the enemies made the mistake, they played into our control and they lost for it. So that's fantastic. We get ourselves the objective right now. So what is going through my mind after this objective? Instantly, we're going to be targeting this Lulstead again. We're going to ask ourselves the question, what's the next objective? Well, it's going to be the dragon. Beautiful. So where do we want to go to translate this lead that we just have? We want to play on bot side because that's where the next objective is going to be. So specifically, the two lanes where we're going to be playing is we're going to be playing mid and bot. That's where I want to play. And because Dragon's still up for 3 minutes, right? And we just got Baron, I want to utilize my Baron to start sieging. So we're going to be sieging mid and bot right here. I also grab my Rabadons, I reset, I get a control ward to keep the control of the area. So we're playing 2 lanes right here. We're playing mid bot, which is fantastic. What happens right now is that Vladimir is pushing in top. I don't care if Vladimir is pushing in top. He can get this tier 1 for all he wants. As long as we can secure both of these tier 2s, I'm very happy trading the top tier 1 for it. We're playing on my terms right here. I'm playing proactive, not reactive. And what happens right here is because we got the control of this area, I'm in the fog of war right here, and Misfortune actually steps into me, I'm able to land a QE. And the Rel engages, we get the kill onto the Rel, we get the kill onto Misfortune, and we still lose the skirmish because our Camille was actually pushing bot. So it's a little bit unfortunate. My team gets a little bit tilted for it, but still it's not the end of the world. We trade T for 2, we get 2 turrets. It's not the end of the world. And I actually killed a Viego on the backhand by nicely abusing Fog of War again. So pretty good job abusing Fog of War. Get another kill. So once again, we gotta ask ourselves the question, what's next? Well, we got the dragon coming up real soon, so I want to push in the waves. Potentially set up the top lane wave as well. So I push in this top lane wave purely because if I push in top lane wave right here, I stall myself a little bit extra time for this dragon. So I instantly open up through mid, get the mid lane control, get the control around the objective. And if we can get the control around this objective, it makes it very hard for the enemies to walk in. So in this case, it's the Rel that is kind of walking in right here. Which is okay. I just keep her out. We just keep the mid lane control. And because we got the full control right here, right, I'm looking for some picks with my E, which is dangerous because Rel could theoretically engage on top of me, but that's why I keep my hands on my flash. given the fact that she would pull the trigger. And in the meantime, my Camille actually killed the Vladimir on top lane. So we got some time in which we can stall. Just got to make sure that we stall the game here so Camille can push for free. And eventually we'll be able to turn this into a dragon, of course. So in these fights, right, one thing that you'll see me do is you'll see me stand real far back because I don't want to get hit by AoE or by anything. We'll be covering that in the teamfight section as well. Eventually Camille shows up, get a beautiful picks onto the enemy team, and we're actually able to just eventually end the game through this. So we didn't even need to play for the dragon. We just played for the control of the area, made it hard for the enemies to walk in, look for picks with E, and eventually we won the game through it. So for this next example, we also got a slight lead in this game. Every lane is doing quite all right. And what we see in this little state is the next objective is going to be dragon in 130. So that's exactly what we want to be playing for. I've just shoved out the bot lane wave, and I'm now moving mid to make sure that we can get control for the next objective. And I use Fog of War really nicely here by keeping the control, using the Fog of War and getting a nice beautiful pick onto the enemy Karma, which is then going to make it even easier for us to secure the parameter right here, because the enemy support, which is the water, is dead. So I'm sitting a little bit more in Fog of War, because if we look at the lanes, right, I do not have to catch a wave right now. All the waves are pushed in. So what I can do is I can control the area of where we want to be playing. And if there would be a wave to catch, I would start catching a wave. But since that's not the case, there's no need for me to do that just yet. So I see that the next objective is going to be the dragon. We just got the bot side control, but the top lane wave is getting a little bit annoying. So I decide to shove out this top lane wave and move towards mid. Shove and move, guys. And now you force someone to answer on the enemy top lane wave. And that allows me to now get the man advantage on mid. And that will secure this dragon. So what I'm doing right is I'm panning my camera, I'm taking control of the next mid wave, forcing the enemies to respond. This always puts us in a position where we're always in an advantageous position. So we get the control. I see that the enemy stopped contesting, so I go away from the dragon. Because right now, what I can do is I can just go back top lane again, and I can answer the top lane wave. Really good rotations right here, making sure that we don't give the enemies an inch. And we still take the objectives the way that we want. So I try to use Fog of War again. Once again, there's going to be a little bit of a trend using Fog of War to try to catch the Camille right there. She backs off, and we eventually get just a farm. We see that something happens on mid. So what I want to do is I want to be proactive in my approach and make sure that I'm there early. So if something happens, I better make sure I go there. In this case, it was really necessary. It wasn't fully necessary in hindsight, but I'd rather be there on time because I didn't have something else to do anyway and play with my team than be there too late and then die. I'm also going to show you an example of where I mess up and it's painful. So what do we do again is this is a very important point. We just got 2 kills onto the Karma and onto the Skarner. We spotted that the enemy kill was actually pushing bot. So someone needs to be answering bot lane real soon. And in this case, what I want to do is, since I'm 300 gold away from my Rabadons, is I actually want to stay a little bit longer in mid to get some more gold so I can actually get my full spike on the Rabadons. I'm fine trading the bot tier 1 if we can get the mid tier 2 for it, and if I can get my Rabadon spike of it. So that's exactly what happens. We get a kill, and now after taking the mid tier 2, that's when I'm reset and I actually start catching bot. That means that right now I need to be pinging my team back, which is what I'm doing. I'm pinging my team back, making sure that they respect the fact that I'm not there. I'm really strong. So in chat, you already can see I'm pinging the next objective. I'm spam pinging Baron Nashor right here because that's where the next objective is going to be. That's where we want to be focusing our attention. So I'm going to be catching the bot lane waves. And what I'll then do is after shoving is I'm going to be moving, right? Because we want to be playing for the Baron. So I shove and move. I get the mid lane control. So we now have had bot lane shoved in. We get mid lane shoved in, which gives us a beautiful, beautiful opportunity right here to start the Baron. And the only thing that we need to do is we're not necessarily starting the Baron to finish the Baron. No, that would be flipping. We want to utilize this Baron as a magnet, forcing the enemies into our position. Because we get the positional advantage with the Fog of War. And what we then can do is we can then look for big chunks, poke, anything like that. And in this specific case, we see that the kill is fighting the Jhin. A little bit of a bad ult on my part, but we force out the Kel TP, and we eventually kill him right here as well. Trade a 1-for-1. Our team gets a kill in mid lane as well. Great. We just got a massive amount of resources from the enemies. We're in a pretty happy spot. So what do? I shove out top. I move mid lane. And this is fine because we got top lane pushed in. So we win the fight right here. We get a nice little stun onto the Skarner. And that eventually allows us to take the Baron. Beautiful. Next lull state right here. We press tab somewhere. Let's try to pause on the tab. Review mechanics here. Painful. We get another shot probably. Okay. So what do we see? We see that the next objective is going to be Dragon. Dragon in 103. So I want to be there when we get Dragon. We do see, though, that on the other hand, that our Renekton is dead right now. So we gotta wait for his timer before we can actually play for something. So there's arguments that you want to go mid right here instead of for the objective. You can do that. That's completely fine. I had a little bit of a different approach right here. I wanted to go in top, and I wanted to push the top lane waves deep. And the reason why I want to push the top lane waves deep is to buy myself a timer. Because if I can get these waves in so deep, I can just shove and move afterwards towards the dragon and make sure that the enemies cannot even respond onto the top side. Because I know that the enemies cannot fight the dragon. So this Kel wants to push in top and get like top tier 1 and top tier 2 for it. So I buy myself a massive timer by shoving in the top lane waves really deep, then moving towards the dragon. And even though I might be late towards the dragon, I always had my TP up if I needed to be there right now. And yes, it's a little bit dangerous because I'm on the weak side of the map. You can see Camille was already looking to try to get me there. But that's why we take the blue ward, and that's why we still play conservative, especially with our E. So we just secured ourselves the dragon because the enemy team is not even close to us. They were actually all on top answering, the Camille and the kill, and we were ahead. So this dragon was non-contestable for the enemies. So what do we do right now is, look, I can go top and defend top tier 1, but the wave on top is still not really pushed in. And we're the ones with Baron. So we want to be proactive. I want to make a proactive move right now. That's my goal right here. Because we want the enemies to respond to us. We don't want to be responding to the enemies. That would be a waste of my time. So I'm happy dropping the top tier 1. And I actually pinged to hard engage onto the Skarner right here. Because we spot the Kel on top. So we're happy fighting. This is a great fighting opportunity. And we also get like a nice W on E and W onto Smolder. And only now I have to reset because I don't want to give Kel the tier 2. The tier 2 is too much gold. So I just moved to save the tier 2 right here. And in the meantime, because we bought such a big timer onto mid and bot, our team is just able to just continue right there. And I am actually able to just survive the Kel dive. I missed my E, but I did have stopwatch, so I was in a really good spot. And I can just now look at what happened in the meantime. Is because we went for the proactive move. My team got the bot inhib and the mid inhib. So the only thing we need to do right now is just open up top, because the next objective is going to be the top tower. We open up top, we push in mid, we push in top. So we play top and mid, which we then translate into top only. And oh, that's exactly where the play ends. But anyway, what we do is we get the top tier 3 here, and then afterwards we just win the game. It's that simple, guys. If you guys have any questions, let me know. So for this next example, we're going to be looking at a tough one here. So I'm in a pretty rough spot individually, but my team is actually doing fantastic. My Lucian is really, really strong. And we got to just play this game out clean to win it. Because yeah, we're a little bit of a timer. They got Kassadin, Fiora, Karthus, so they got a lot of scaling. So it's really important that we just keep focusing on the next objective and that we continuously are there first. So in this particular situation, I'm respawning right here and the Rift Herald is up. So it's really easy. We're just going to be opening up towards true mid to top. So I recognize the Rift Herald's up. So I actually go towards top lane, which is fine. I don't necessarily need to go like fully top right now. I could theoretically also open up true mid. I think that's what I should have done. But in the end, we guarantee ourselves the objective, which is fantastic. Then I push out the top lane wave. And this is a classic example of where you want to push and move. The only thing that we recognize is that the next objective is actually going to be on bot side right now. So the next objective is going to be the dragon, which is going to spawn in about 1 minute 40 seconds. So it's really important to recognize that I am on the weak side right now. And I am on the side where the game's not being played upon. So I'm in a really dangerous position. Very, very dangerous position. So what I need to do is I need to get my ass over towards mid lane, towards bot lane, so we can take control of that area. Maybe send the Aatrox towards top. But what happens is I forget that the enemy team has a very high threat champion in Kassadin in the game, that he can just jump over the wall and basically one-shot me. So I miss position right here and I get caught in rotation. Massive mistake. Insanely big mistake. What I should have done is I think pushing out the top lane wave is fine. And then I should either just reset, open up mid, or just take the long way around, the weak side way around towards mid, and then try to get control right there. But I messed up. I got caught in rotation. Painful death. Okay, still not the end of the world. Because look what we see here. Dragon coming up in 116. Right, we still got the objective coming up in a bit. We're fine. So Kassadin pushes in the top lane wave. And we see that he does not push in the next wave. And we see, let's go a little bit back. Sorry, guys. Kassadin pushed in the top lane wave, but he does not push in another wave. And we see that Lee Sin lands a Q onto mid right here. And if we stop it right here, we see that Dragon's gone up in 30 seconds. That means that we are on a timer right here. My team is controlling the area. We do see that Karma is low. So we got to be a little bit careful given this particular situation. Because ideally, we want to have Karma ready to fight as well. But maybe she's able to fight on lower health. We're pretty far ahead. So I decide to push in this top lane wave. And my Lee Sin actually goes for a very aggressive play onto the enemy Raptors right here. This is a pretty complex situation. But this is actually a situation where we kind of just lose the game. And what happens here is cards get the big shutdown on Lee Sin. I TP in too late. And I die as well. So let's break this situation down. What's the issue here? We recognize that the next objective is going to be the dragon. We want to be playing for the dragon. Our Jinx is still dead. And ideally, therefore, we do not go for this for this Raptor invade. Because Kassadin also has the move timer. He's shoved in top. And he's now able to open up through mid and play right here. So what I should have done is I should have pinged this off. I should have pinged back right here. We cannot play this. But what I need to do is whenever I see my Lee Sin take this Q, my instant response should be, oh, I need to TP right now. I need to play with my fat Lee Sin because this guy is going to be the key to our victory. Knowing that Kassadin is going to go right there, we're on a very limited time. You don't want to be too late as Syndra. So I should have instant TP'd right there, and then I would have been there right now, probably being able to get a very good QE stun and probably winning the fight. But because I'm too slow, I'm actually not able to get there on time. And then when I do TP in, it's too late. And given the point that my Lee Sin already died, then it would have been better to just push in top and get the top tier one. But in the end, I was too late for the next objective, guys. I was too late and I didn't communicate well with my team, which means that this was my mistake in this particular case. Of course, not only my mistake, there's some more factors to it. There's also a situation that we don't go for the Raptors invade, but actually just play for the dragon and play on the Jinx timer, which is also fair to say. But yeah, I could have definitely changed my own behavior right here. And this is a game loser. It's a game loser. It's legit a game loser. Giving the enemy scaling team the next dragon right here versus the Fiora Karthus Kassadin means that they'll probably be able to reach level 16 and they'll just outskill us from that point. So even though we were super far ahead, it was a very small margin of errors. I made 2 big mistakes and that led to us losing the game. So, lot to it, right? A mistake can be very, very swift in an aspect like this. So it sucks. Mid games like these, they happen, but you learn from it. There's a lot of different ways that you learn from it. And that's what I wanted to show with this example. It won't always be perfect. It's sometimes going to be pretty hard as well. As long as you understand in the back of your mind what you're looking to play for, you're playing to be first, playing to let the enemies come into you. You're playing to use your lull state for the next objective. Keep your farm up, shove and move, and be first, then you're most likely going to be completely fine. If you guys have any questions, let me know. So as a final mid-game example, I wanted to show an example in which that we're pretty behind as a team. We're actually really struggling here. So what we're seeing is that top lane is very far behind. He got camped. I'm pretty far behind. Pretty tough, like just very tough game for me as Syndra. Really high threat. But my Ezreal is actually doing quite quite well. We also have a Heimerdinger jungle, so he didn't really help me much as well. Let's be honest here. But Ezreal is actually doing really well. So it's going to be all about Ezreal. Winning this game is going to be all about this guy. And we're still going to be playing towards our classic reference points. We see that the enemy team has pretty short range. And side laning is going to be very hard for me versus the enemy champions right here. So if we open up in this lull state, we see that both the Rift Herald and the Dragon are coming up. So if we want to play, we need to be there first. So whatever we're doing, my mindset is to be first for whatever we're playing. So what I do is I instantly TP bolt to try to get an advantageous position by forcing the enemies to respond to my bot lane wave right now. So because I TP bolt right here, look at the bot lane wave. We get bot prio. We also get mid prio because Ezreal is stronger than the enemy AD carry. So we might actually be able to play the dragon like this if we can actually get the control. Because we're not too far behind. We're behind, but we're not too far behind. I think if we're first, we can play it. But what happens is that our well gets like engaged upon because the enemy team still had control. And then we lose the fight. We get completely annihilated. So how comes that we just got annihilated so hard in this fight? Well, let's break it down. What should we have done? First of all, Jace TP'd. So we eventually got into a instantly man disadvantage situation, which is not really ideal. Yone has no TP. So this was a tricky situation. So I think the TP from me on bot lane was really good. But what did we kind of forget is we kind of still were running into the enemies. What I should have done is after pushing bot, force an enemy to respond. And I should actually go through the weak side way to mid to get priority on this next mid lane wave together with the Ezreal. And then we could actually move in. Because then we force the enemies to respond to the mid lane wave by either sending people there, which means that we get access to walk in. Or what happens is they lose the mid tower if they play for the dragon. And we're happy trading like that. So the idea was good. The execution could be slightly better here in this aspect. But overall, we forced the Jace TP. Yes, there's some people dying. But it wasn't the end of the world. Because what happens is Yone actually gets the top tower and gets a lot of top farm in return. So what do we see right now is that the enemy team actually overstays to get for the mid tier 1. Which means that we are now all coming from base. Which means that we get a tempo advantage. We are first on the map. We can utilize this to get an advantageous position. I don't want to be going bot lane right now. Because going bot lane is already pushed in. And I don't really want to be matching any of these guys in the side lane. I'll get completely annihilated in the side lane. So what do? I actually call for the Rift Herald. Because we're first. So we see in a position where we're shoving out mid lane wave. And Shaco hasn't actually reset. So with Shaco not having reset, I can now just chunk the Shaco. And because he's so low and he hasn't reset yet, he cannot really play anymore. So we're practically in a man advantageous position. What we want to do is we now want to just get the mid control again. And then try to move in and maybe start the objective. So that's exactly what we're doing. I'm hovering here on mid. And you may be wondering, Tim, why are you not answering top lane wave? We need to shove and move, right? Yeah, that's right. But look at the top lane wave. The top lane wave is not pushed into my tower. I don't need to answer it just yet. So I will whenever we're done with the mid lane play here. So we're done with the mid lane play right now. And it actually seems that my Yone gets the kill onto the Jace on bot, which is fantastic. And the only reason that it worked was because he just got the top tower and the top farm. So he just got very farmed. So right now I only need to answer bot lane right here. Could have been a little bit quicker, a little bit swifter on my movement. But still, it's fine. For some reason, team is tilted. And what happens here is that Katarina TP's bot. So given the fact that we just killed Jace on bot and Katarina's TPing bot, what does that mean? That means that we now have a timer in which we can make a proactive play. Because Jace just died, we just shoved in mid lane wave, and Katarina just TP bot, which means that 2 people are off the map, and I think someone else was also still on bot. So that means that I can just push top lane wave as deep as possible to force an enemy to respond right here. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be pushing top. It's not that special. I'm just going to be pushing top right here. We get the Rift Herald in the meantime. And now what we can do is we can recognize, okay, what's the next objective? Well, it's going to be bot side. So I want to be creating another timer in which we can move. So what we can see is that now Jace is answering top lane wave, which means that I can get a reset and instantly make a play on bot to try to get bot and mid priority, because we already have the mid priority right here. So we're now able to collapse upon the enemies that just dove our Yone, which grabs us the big shutdown onto the Katarina, which is fantastic, which is really, really good. And then what we do is we play, once again, for the priorities onto mid and bot. In the meantime, Jace did get the T2 top, which is not ideal, but it is what it is. But what we can do is we can now just, we have the Ezreal on top and me on mid. Ideally, I swap now with the Ezreal, putting the Ezreal on mid. I go push top, and then we get control through there. But anyways, what we do is we eventually find the enemies here in the jungle, which is good because our Yone is moving up because the bot lane wave was pushed in and Katarina's answering without TP. She didn't TP, so if we can find a man advantage play right here, that would be fantastic. Ignore my flash here, guys. It didn't happen. Not at all. And because we're finding a man advantage fight right here, we are actually winning. We get a kill into the Samira, we get a kill into the Shaco, which is insanely good. And what happens instantly is that the Yone goes to answer bot lane. It's not my job to answer bot lane. Katarina will murder me. We'll actually get the mid lane Herald charge. And I'm instantly able to utilize this pressure eventually to go in towards the enemy bot side, which is going to be onto the next dragon. So we're already pinging the next dragon. And what I do is I bait a reset here. So I bait the Poppy to actually cancel me because I want to force a fight. Because look at the minion waves. We're pushing in bot, mid lane is pushed in, top lane is pushed in. So even if we trade 2 for 2, it's worth because the waves are in a good position. So we're playing on our terms, we're playing proactive right here. If she wouldn't have cancelled me, resetting is also completely fine. But this actually allows us to get this beautiful pick onto the Poppy. And this pick onto the Poppy allows me to take a free reset and guarantee this dragon because we're going to be first on the map here. We're constantly first. We're constantly playing on our terms. Even though we're behind, we got these very limited times of space that we can do something, but we're still doing it on. So we recognize right now that we get the dragon. What do I want to do? Answer top lane wave. And now I want to be pushing top side because we recognize that Nash is the next objective. So I do have my Rabadon's gold right here. So I theoretically want to also be resetting real soon. But I push in top lane wave real deep. I reset. And now I open up through mid to try to play for the mid into topside control onto the Baron right here with my Rabadons. I'm finally strong. I may have been very behind, but I've been farming pretty decently, almost 10 CS per minute. So I'm still very, very strong. And I see that the fight happens. And we also spotted that Katarina was on top wave. So I know that this is instantly where I need to TP. So whenever a fight happens like this, and I'm happy to play it because of the wave stage, just instantly send it with the TP. Because you want to be there as early as possible. You want to be there first. And what happens is we get this beautiful kill onto the Samira. We get the beautiful kill onto the Poppy, which will then lead into the Baron. Now you may be wondering, Jace is pushing bot. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. Right? He's just going to get the tier 1. He's just going to get the tier 3. I mean, he's going to get the inhib. That's fine. The only thing we need to do is secure the Baron. Make sure that Shaco cannot steal it. Get the Baron. We trade the inhib for the Baron, which is fine because we're playing once again on our terms. You need to be playing proactively. You need to be first. Play on your terms. So now I'm going to be pushing out bot lane wave. And I want to have Ezreal push out bot. And I am going to push out mid. But eventually it's Yone that pushes out bot. And I'm going to be pushing out mid with the Ezreal. It's fine. Once again, we're playing on our terms here. We're playing on our priorities. And we see that the enemy team is actually overloading topside. So we're now 3 versus 5 here. And a lot of people would panic and would think, we need to back on top. No, you don't. We can just play because we're in a man advantage situation. We got Baron. We need to let them answer us. Don't answer them. You want them to answer you. So eventually Yone dies. But because we're in such a big man advantage with the strong members right here, we can just end the game through it. Really. We got the Baron. We're very, very strong. We can just end the game through it. And we do. And we just win the game. Even though we were incredibly far behind in a really rough position in this game. So this game was purely one true mid-game macro. If you guys struggle on Syndra mid-game macro, this is a very good example to copy it even if you're behind. So we're going to be talking about Syndra's team fighting. And Syndra's team fighting goes very deep. It's very complex. But if we can simplify it as much as possible, we're going to be talking about mainly 3 concepts, which is positioning, which is going to be E usage, and it's going to be target selection. So if we're going to be looking at this specific state of the game, we just got Baron, we're sieging. I'm strong, my team is pretty strong, but we see that the enemy Jinx is probably the strongest champion in the game. So what we want to be doing is we want to make sure that this Jinx cannot really play the game. And she won't be able to play a game if I use my E correctly, and if I basically don't waste my abilities. And if I don't get too close to her as well, it's very important. So what we do right here is we siege. We don't see Jinx just yet. Jinx has to stand really far back. I cannot reach Jinx right now with my E. So I'm not even attempting to hit it onto her because she's too far away. We do see the Braum running in right here. So I look to chunk the Braum with my combo right here. And he actually gets collapsed upon by the enemy champions. Fantastic. This puts us in a really good position. I didn't use the ult onto Braum because I don't want to be using my ult onto the Braum. I want to use my ult onto one of the key targets, either the Kassadin or the Jinx, depending on how the fight, how the fight plays out. So what happens is we actually siege the tower right here. I prepare my E, and Jinx stands really far back. So she has insanely good positioning. But the Bel'Veth and the Kassadin are completely out of position to get a little bit of a rewatch on this. I do the double stun, double ball stun into both Kassadin and the Bel'Veth, and I ult the Kassadin to finish him off and guarantee the pick off onto one of the priority targets. So right now, what we see is that the enemy other priority target, the Jinx, is still alive. So we got to be very careful. We cannot just go walk forward. So what I do is I use my next E to basically get this Jinx out of the fight, make sure it's impossible for her to chase, and because she stuns, she gets CC chained into the kill. This was like a gorgeous team fight. I just play it out one more time here. Very nice QE onto Braum. I didn't miss a single E this game of this team fight. And if you can land your E's consistently, you're going to be winning almost every team fight. Like the E usage is so important in these fights. If you miss your E's, you're going to be so useless because this is your most offensive, but also your only defensive tool. And the cooldown is really, really large. So you really got to understand when to back off and when to play aggressive when it comes to your E usage, because that's going to be the make or break ability in most of these fights. So this E was absolutely gorgeous. One of the best E's I've done, I think, in a while. Like a really, really, really good E that was. Yeah, and just beautiful kill into the Bel'Veth as well, into stun onto Jinx. Like absolutely fantastic, winning as a team fight. Let's jump into the next example. So in this next team fight, we see that the Herald is up. That's what we're playing for right here. And enemy Kog'Maw is on bot. So we're actually in a man advantage situation on top side right here because our fat Jinx actually rotated up top. So that makes the fight already pretty decent. What we see as well is that from the enemies that are in the area right here, Rumble is the most threatening. So Rumble's the biggest issue. He's actually strong. He's beating the heck out my Ornn. So that's going to be a little bit of a problem. So let's see how I play this team fight right here. It seems like the enemies are already having the area control. So it's really hard for us to just go ahead and walk in there, because ideally Syndra is first. So the main thing that we're going to be focusing on in this specific team fight is positioning and target selection, because the fight in itself was already pretty good. So what we see right here is I'm actually standing in the fog of war. These enemies do not have vision right here. So that entices these guys to actually engage upon my Milio and my Jinx because they don't know where I am exactly. And because I'm in the fog of war, it makes it really easy to land my E onto the Kha'Zix. We can just get them into the Zilean R. And what I do right now is I don't ult the Kha'Zix because that's not my priority target. I want to get this Rumble. So if this Rumble ever gives it to me, I will ult him, especially if I got a lot of balls on the ground. I'll be able to one-shot him. So we instantly one-shot the Rumble. Because the fight was already advantageous to begin with, we just instantly win the fight. Really quick, really clean team fight. The only reason this worked was because we were in a man advantage situation. If the Kog'Maw would be here, I would not want to team fight this, because then the position is not good because we are walking into the enemies rather than letting them come into us. So for this next team fight, we're mainly going to look at it through a positional lens. Because this team fight is actually quite interesting because we don't really do much except for keep a very good position. First of all, both of our AD carries are dead. Yana's got no arm. So what we see right here is that the dragon's coming up. So it's really important that we control the choke points around mid right here to make it hard for the enemies to enter. That's exactly what we're seeing right here. Is the enemies are all trying to enter through the choke point. But because we control it really well, we make it very hard for these guys to enter. The fight gets split up and we actually win it very easily. And it's not like I land crazy abilities. I didn't even use my R. The only thing that I did right here was know my job in controlling this choke point. So to re-show it right here, Alistar goes in. All I have to do is to make sure that the rest of them don't follow. Keep them in this choke point. Rumble R helps a lot as well because it deals a crazy amount of damage. And the enemy team gets split up and they instantly die. Not complicated at all. we use our positional advantage in this specific case with an okay E to win the team fight, especially support our team with it. So this team fight, a lot of other stuff gets combined as well. Initially, we see that the position isn't too good for us. We are ahead, but the enemies actually have got the position onto the dragon right here. So we see that our Viego gets engaged upon by the enemy team. I bump out the Rel, make it harder for her to collapse onto the Viego. But I see that my Kai'Sa actually jumped into the Fiddlesticks trying to kill him, and she dies for it, plus we lose the dragon. So this is not a pretty position. But we do see that our Warwick is actually running in. And what actually happens is that the enemies try to hard engage upon us. And what's beautiful is that they try to play into the choke here. And that's exactly what you want to happen as Syndra, is that the enemies play into choke points. Because what we're going to be seeing right here is that we're going to be using this choke point to get insane value out of our abilities. And that just instantly wins the team fight. This insane E wins the team fight. Katarina stopped playing, puts us in a great position in this game. So I'm going to be re-showing it to you guys. Really showing you guys what was incredibly good here. So what I'm looking at is I'm looking at this choke point. If you can let the enemies go through this choke point, it's so easy to land your abilities onto them because your abilities are pretty big in AoE. So what happens after they kill the Kai'Sa, it's pretty whatever, right? I see that the Rel tries to hard force onto us here, which was a good attempt by the Rel, but Alistar also did a great job keeping him out. Not a bad stun, hitting both the Alistar, both the Rel and the Zeri. Not bad at all. And I position really far back because I don't want to get hit by any of the enemy spells or CC in this choke point. This is the choke point that I'm controlling. That's what's going through my mind. That's what I want to focus on. So the Warwick comes in and Katarina ults in. So the Katarina has a problem. She's just very strong. So what I do is I try to nuke her to help get a reset for Viego. Now I don't deal too much damage, unfortunately. But still is enough. And all these balls that I just used with my R are still on the ground. And then my E comes back up. They're all walking through the choke point. And we get the 4-man stun, I think what it is. Which just instantly wins the team fight. Because yeah, the amount of CC duration that you just got off, it's just so unbelievably insane. So this team fight, we're going to be seeing me make a lot of mistakes. Both E usage-wise and positioning-wise. It was a little bit of a horror, and that's why we just get absolutely wiped. As you can see, I'm not weak at all. My team is definitely very far behind. This is the Hextech Soul. So it's a really important fight to at least like win. So the enemies unfortunately get the soul. We do dodge out on the first Naughty hook. That was really, really good. But what happens right here is that I actually get plainly ulted by the Nautilus. I fuck up my E, and what happens is that we then just get absolutely wiped in the team fight right here. Which then loses the game, because we also lost the Hextech Soul. So let's go a little bit back towards my E and towards the positioning. So what happened was I dodged the Nautilus hook, which was good. Which was really, really good. But it was still too hard to just go ahead and walk into the enemies right here. Especially since Nautilus still took control of this bush. So my positioning was really bad. It was too close to the Nautilus. If I walk in, I had to do it a little bit more down to actually make it harder for Nautilus to do that. But the worst thing is not really the positioning, because the fact that I got Nautilus was bad and probably got me killed anyway. But the E was the biggest shocker, right? Because if I keep my E, what happens is if guys had dashed in right here, I can just QR into E her, and she would have died, gotten the Viego reset. Who knows? Fight would have played out differently. The biggest issue was the E in combination with my positioning. Whenever you lose team fights, usually this is what happens. You either stuff up the E, or you mess up your positioning, or your target slashing is whack. If you guys have any questions, let me know. So for the final example, I wanted to give a little bit of a more unique, creative approach towards a team fight, because this is not really a way that you're going to be doing it yourself a lot of times. In this case, I actually started off this team fight with a flank on Syndra. And what I did is I actually went for the double ball stun, which worked very well. I got a big chunk onto the Jace, proc this Edge of Night, and just in general, I really chunked the enemy champions. What I do afterwards is I stay a little bit further back until I've got my E back up, and once I've got my E back up, that's when I can actually go in again. So the Jinx is the biggest problem of the enemy team. But what happened was that Bel'Veth went so deep into me that I had to like kill her because she was completely disrespecting me. But still, my mind is onto the Jinx right here because the Jinx is a priority target. I definitely want to keep her out. If I can prevent this Jinx from hitting, I'm doing a pretty good job. So constantly my eyes is focusing on the Jinx. and the enemies that are trying to walk into me, right? Because that's what eventually what you want to be doing as Syndra. You want to make it hard for the enemies to enter. Whenever I do not have E, I back up. I back up. I gotta be very, very careful for this Jinx. The Jinx is incredibly strong. That's the end of the team fight. We do win the game actually because of all the picks. Luckily. I quickly want to emphasize a few more things right here. I go for the stun, really good chunk onto the Jace. I back up because I got no E right here. Jinx is never giving me the range or the opportunity to like ult her or get into a range. So I'm not forcing it, right? I'm not forcing it. I go for an okay stun, but I think I should slightly back off because I got no stun right now. Bel'Vev recognizes that, but she messes up, gets hit by my W plus R, and instantly gets annihilated, right? That's the power of Syndra of Syndra scaling. She messes up once, instantly gets annihilated. And right now what we do is we take the control of the soul area right here. And then when the enemies are walking in, it's really easy to land your abilities and basically just keep on one distance. Once again, try to cycle around those E's. The E's are really what counts. That's where these team fights are mainly going to be centered around. Very unique, very elongated team fight sequence, but I think it does a pretty good job at showing what Syndra is actually capable of. So after watching everything, you still struggle to seem to win games on Syndra. What are you supposed to do? Well, I've done over 100 Syndra client reviews, and there's a few key things that happen when people struggle playing Syndra. Number one, they're getting complacent with their ability usage and they're not timing it with last hits. This is the first thing that I want you to check, because the lane is going to be setting yourself up for success later down the line. So this is priority number one to investigate. Then, are we actually slowing the game down and calling off unfavorable and unnecessary plays? Sometimes people forget to prioritize themselves. They actually start go and help their jungle or the support who's making stupid plays, in which that we should have actually pinged them off because the plays are not favorable for you to make. You really want to be clear on what do I want to do and what do I especially not want to do. Then, are we first at objectives? Are we making proactive plays rather than being reactive? When people get ahead in the early lane, but they struggle to translate that lead into the mid to late game, what I'm always thinking about is like, are you first at your objectives? People just start running late into the enemies through choke points, they die, and they just lose the game of one single play. That happens. You need to be first, you need to be playing on your terms. And then finally, what I see a lot is that people, they ask me the question, but Tim, I'm going towards this dragon, but my team is not there. Yeah, that's right, because you're not communicating towards your team. You need to be very clear on your communication in advance. Take at least a minute and a half in advance. We need to be pinging what we want to be doing, what our objective is going to be. And this is where I see most people go wrong with in the mid game, right? People have decent early lane, but they cannot translate their leads to mid to late games. They're not using the lull states and communicating the things that you see and the information that you gather towards our team. So you're not at the same page. Remember, guys, it's a team game in the end. And 1v9ing is always really hard. Ideally, you want to be playing with your team because these guys are going to help you win the game. This is a crucial part to actually winning games on Syndra. And there's a final extra little tidbit right here. The skin tier list. People have been asking me for this one every single guide. So we're going to be starting off with God tier. Run every game, basic Syndra. Base Syndra, best skin for Syndra there is. Animations, super smooth. Abilities, super clean, and it makes it really easy to get consistent in what hits and what doesn't hit. Auto attacks, very, very sexy. Makes it really easy to last hit minions compared to any of these other skins, right? Which the auto attacks are mainly just disgusting to play with. Mainly with the pay to lose. Don't run any of these skins. You're going to be losing creeps. You're going to be missing your E. There's a reason these skins are pay to lose. I don't recommend them. Even though they may look good, they don't feel good to play with. That's really how I rate this skin tier list. Doable ones are Atlantean, Coven, Bewitching, and Withered Rose, or like Withered Rose or something like that. They're all doable skins. Because the out-attack animations are okay, the Qs are okay. There's some arguments that the abilities in these skins are actually pretty decent. These skins, I just don't recommend them. Like, this is like, they're just not good skins. They're not pay to lose worthy, but they're just not good skins. But just to tie it all together, right? Very simply, just run base skin every every single game. That's also what I do. I've got a lot of these skins in my inventory, but I don't use them. I just want to be using base skin because that's what feels the best to me. That's what I can get most consistent win with and win every game with. If you guys enjoyed the guide, please let me know. If you guys have any comments, any questions, anything that you want to say to me, put them down in the comments. I put a lot of effort into this one, so I would appreciate a like. And I'll be seeing you guys real soon with some more content. Thank you all for watching.